Okay, welcome everyone. I will call the regional, I'm probably way too far away. I will call the regional school committee to order at 6:34. And because we are all in person, we do not need to take roll call attendance, which is fantastic. First order of business is public comment. We did receive one. We received some, which are attached, and we do have one message, which I will pull up and share, theoretically.
Dear Amherst Regional School Committee, I would like to comment on the proposed time change for middle and high school. One of my daughters was lucky enough to enter high school under the later start time 4 years ago. She slept better, ate better, played varsity sports every term, and had straight A's and a part-time job. After so many years of expert advice to delay start time for middle and high school, Amherst finally did it. 9 a.m. worked well for a family. Even 8:45 could possibly work, but 8:30 means taking the bus before 8 a.m., and it would be stressful. I now have a 7th grader with a 504 who's doing well with the current schedule. Sleeping is less stressful, so he eats better in the morning while having time to prepare nutritious snacks, as he doesn't like most school meals. He is enrolled in spring track without any scheduling issues. Leaving early a couple of times for meets is less of a problem than having a very early start in the morning every day. I'm still hoping for soccer in the fall, but middle school sports are almost non-existent, causing us to rely on travel soccer and other few semi-affordable options. You cite experts, but experts are the ones who praised the later start for teens in the past. Were students and families surveyed recently? Will transportation be affected both logistically and financially? Extra advisory times would be very much appreciated, but can't previous advisory times be restored under the current 9 a.m. or maybe 8:45 start time, even if after school? Teens who are not enrolled in after-school sports or after-school help might have to go home to be alone, and most of them online. I really don't see how starting any time earlier than 8:45 or 9 a.m. would benefit them. Our family does not support anything earlier, but does support more advisory time at the current start time, maybe sometime after school. Thank you for listening. Renata Shepard, Amherst.
Okay. Okay. All right, next up is a chair's update. So a couple of things to start with. So Tim will take on the RSC representation at CPAC. Town meeting review. Thank you to Leverett on April 29th and Pelham and Shutesbury on May 10th for passing our FY27 budget. Leverett and Pelham definitely passed the leasing language amendment. Anna, do you know if Shutesbury did also? And Shutesbury did. Go team small town. Okay. We had Dr. Z and I, along with Shannon and Deb, as Amherst School Committee Chair, went to meet with the Amherst Town Finance Committee on May 7th. The document that was presented and discussed is attached under the, is that a true story?
Yes.
Yes, it is attached. Okay. Sorry, I was under the wrong thing on my screen. So that is the document that was discussed. There was minimal conversation, I would say, regarding the regional budget. So next, I want to update on the State of the Districts Summit. So Dr. Z is holding a summit on May 16th. Yes, okay. After receiving the initial invite, I invited Tim and Anna to represent the regional committee at the summit, and then had follow-up conversation with Dr. Z about, how is it being organized and what. And Dr. Z said the intention with few committee members was to help protect the committee from open meeting law violation or quorum issues. However, after the conversation, I decided to post for Saturday morning as a retreat for the committee. So then there's no votes or decisions that are going to be made, but we will be able to receive all the information. And also not worry about an open meeting law violation or a quorum issue. So I have posted that for the region. Dr. Z?
If you plan on attending, please let me know by tomorrow, at least by midday, because we are trying to keep a count and plan for refreshments as well.
So, yep, 9 a.m. Saturday, the 16th. And I think that is all of my chair's update. Okay. And I also wanted to say special shout outs to Tim and Anna and William and Dr. Z for advocating so wonderfully to have our budget and proposed language passed. I can't speak to Shutesbury because, well, Shutesbury and Pelham happened at the same time, which was highly unfortunate, but I was able to go to the Leverett Town meeting at the end of April, which Tim and Dr. Z did a fantastic job advocating and answering any questions that came up. And same, having sat in many meetings with Anna, I will assume she did exactly the same thing.
I did not have to.
Even better.
The budget passed with zero discussion.
Wow.
And I did introduce the lease portion, which also had no discussion after I
Fantastic.
introduced it.
Fantastic.
So
And, well,
they're just happy.
that is excellent. Pelham was not as simple or easygoing as Leverett or Shutesbury this year. It was a little bit spicy, but nonetheless, our FY27 budget was passed, along with our leasing language. And William and Dr. Z both advocated fiercely. So thank you to everybody who was part of the town meetings this year. And to all of our, town meeting goers that voted in favor of our budget. Sarah?
I may be behind still, but does anyone know about the status of the leasing language or discussions thereof for town council, for Amherst Council? Do we know when they're going to take it up or anything about, because all four towns need to agree, yes?
Yes, they asked a bunch of questions about that.
In the FinCom, in the
In the
Finance Committee?
FinCom.
I see. Okay.
Yep. And Deb, if you have a better memory of how it all went down. Oh, Dr. Z, yep, also.
In regards to the language, and when they intend, your question is when they intend to bring it up. They asked me to consult with council around if there's a specific timeline that they have to follow for it to be passed. To be very honest, I think that the town of Amherst wants the whole agreement to be updated to match their current town government structure. And they feel like they may or may not feel like they need to move the language forward without that being changed. But that's the question that I'm gonna get an answer from Mark and send over to them.
Yep. Deb, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Sarah Beth did a great job.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes?
Just to let you know, the lease
Speak into the.
the lease that's being worked on will be the same regardless if the language changes or not. The end
Say that
result
again?
of the lease,
The lease, okay.
because I've been working on the
Yeah,
lease.
yeah.
So the lease at the end result, based on the $100 and the cost and the negotiations and all that, it'll end up being the same cost to Amherst, regardless if we have a language change or not. So originally, we thought the language change was
Had to
really, really
pre-
important.
yeah.
And we've gotten some workarounds and some guidance through council. So it's not
this language
as
isn't-
important.
This Amherst voting the amended, paragraph G of section 6 is not, will not hold up any potential
Right.
lease between the regional
region and the
committee
town.
and the town of Amherst regarding Chestnut Street
Thank you.
Academy. Is that what you were?
Well,
Part of
that-
what-
That also.
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further? Good? Okay. Superintendent's update.
Good evening, everyone. I do not feel very well today, so I just want to preface with that, and I may step off at a certain point, but couple things. We've attached my most recent, well, one of my recent correspondences, but this went out to caregivers, just giving them a few things, and this highlighted the same budget updates. I did not change my Zoom logo because we've launched Tea with Dr. Z. The first session went off. It's really about taking the time to reframe the narrative around different district programs, share information and provide that to the community. We wanted to do a live Q&A. But the first one was around just our MLE programs, dual language and Caminantes. And then we intended to have one on our SE programs. However, in regards to recent events, I was informed that educators did not feel ready to have that conversation yet. So we will be using this as an opportunity to shift the narrative around Amherst. There's a lot that surrounds Amherst especially in the education field, and it's not all positive. There's a little more need to push the positive highlights of the district, and that's what we're kind of using Tea with Dr. Z and different ways to kind of move that forward. And just that, we're not a district that can't get ourselves together. We are together, and so we want to highlight those things. I also wanted to share with the community some things about start and end times, and make sure they knew when it was going to come up in front of the school committees. And then I was also asked to update on the org chart because there are some new individuals under new places. We are working, William, to make sure that it aligns with our new website. So there's some things in a new website, and thank you to the school committee members for making sure that if you see something, you say something. I know that's is it Homeland Security's thing? But we could borrow it for here. So there's a lot of moving parts in the central office, but individuals wanting to know who sat where. There's a to be determined under the director of SSO, but we do have community forums happening this week, I believe, with our singular finalists for SSO, so that's this week. And that information went out to the community. We have a forum specifically for individuals who would work directly with that individual in the SC programs. We have the caregiver, and then we have the full staff moving forward. And so it's really, really great for us to make sure that critical positions are filled. It's tomorrow and Thursday that those sessions will be held, and we are making sure that we get all of our information out. And just wanted to say a brief thank you
Bless
to
you.
everyone as we move forward. Thanks.
Sarah Beth?
Yep, go ahead, Deb.
Dr. Z, this organizational chart, I didn't have a chance to compare it to the one that went in front of the Amherst School Committee in December. Do you know if there have been any changes?
Yes, we included, oh boy, Colleen is on here. We still need to update because we have some shifts. As you know, there's an appointment coming this evening. So we're gonna shift that. And I don't think there are any other major changes on here. There are gonna be some changes though as we move forward, because we need to update the high school principal. Those interviews are scheduled for Thursday. I believe the first round interviews are scheduled for Thursday.
This week?
And so there's different things that are moving forward. So this will keep updating. So if you spot something that's an error, please let us know because we've been updating it as we move forward, but we could have missed something.
And just a correction, it was February. I misspoke. The one that came in front of the Amherst School Committee was February.
Okay.
Okay, great. Sarah?
And is this on the website somewhere? Is this org chart?
So that's one of the things we were asked to upload. William said it didn't align. He pointed that out to me, so we're working on uploading that.
Okay, thank you.
William?
Just quick question. Last time, I think we maybe saw this, it had pilot for the 4 executive directors. Are we out of pilot now?
Yeah. They're not like, do we need to go through that part of?
No.
I'm lost in the question, actually.
Oh, I think last time we saw this, it said it was a pilot for the 4 executive directors. I was just curious if we were done with the pilot and this is what we're doing now. Or if they were still the 4 executive directors as a
No,
pilot.
they've been functioning as executive directors and in their primary roles.
Okay.
Like, they still have their primary roles, but this still falls under how we have them in the compensation framework as like additional duties. Not additional duties contract, but it's a stipended position is what they do.
Yes, great. Thank you. Okay. Reports and updates from liaisons and subcommittees. I don't have anything attached. Okay. Are there any quick updates anybody can share? Budget and Audit has a meeting on Friday.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could,
We
since I
will
did-
also have more conversation on item 2D. So,
Okay.
okay. Okay. Dr. Z, vote to appoint a treasurer.
So first, let me start off by saying a very, very hearty and public thank you to Jill. I know she has not like officially transitioned out yet.
Point of
But
order,
I-
we have a different agenda order.
I don't know how that's possible.
The next order of business is discussion around the integration
It is
of
different.
Chestnut Academy to ARMS.
It said treasurer like 10 minutes ago as A, and somehow it was switched like within the last 10 minutes.
Mine says vote to appoint treasurer is next.
I have vote to appoint treasurer on
Yeah, and then I refreshed it first because I was doing something, and it moved down to C, and I don't know how that happened.
See?
Who's messing with it?
It's not me, I'm not like that.
I don't know.
I didn't do it. The last thing I did was May 8th. That's the last thing I did, May 8th.
Okay.
If the school committee does not mind, can we please?
Sure.
go
Is that
the
okay
original
with the committee to have vote appoint treasurer next? I don't know what happened. I'm very sorry. Mine says appoint treasurer as the next item. I will not. Shannon, Dr. Z.
Okay, all right, that threw me off. Okay, so I want to start this off, I want to start this off by having a very public and strong thank you to Jill. She has dedicated a lot of time to our district and made sure that, you know, the role of treasurer kind of went above and beyond. And so it was not easy to first start off by developing this job description, but also thinking about the financial knowledge that Jill holds, how we can make sure that there's an opportunity for a shift in institutional knowledge. And lo and behold, like I said, we're shifting the narrative around Amherst and the region, and we were able to poach greatness from a nearby district. And so Kristen, and I do not want to kill her last name, is a prime candidate, and I'm gonna give Shannon the honor of talking a little bit about her. But I do wanna say that she, like, primarily her last service prior to her going to transition to us is Assistant City Treasurer for Northampton. So she's coming with great treasurer knowledge. So Shannon, you get the honors.
Yes, I will, just given the opportunity, I do also want to give a huge thanks to Jill. She is retiring, and she has been my left hand within the district, and I was very worried when she said she was officially retiring, that we would be able to find somebody to fill her shoes. And like Dr. Z said, she has certainly gone above and beyond just the treasurer duties, and I'm so appreciative of her work. And with that, I am very excited when I met Kristen that she could enter into this role and it would be a smooth transition, because this is a very difficult position to fill. And like Dr. Z said, she is from the city of Northampton, currently serving as the assistant treasurer. She has also previously stepped in as the acting treasurer for the city of Northampton. Not only does she have experience with the treasury work, she also has experience with payroll, accounts payable, banking knowledge, of course, and cash management. And she is used to our financial system that we already use, Munis. So that learning curve of learning the software and already having that knowledge is huge. Kristen's also served as the treasurer for the Hadley PTO and a treasurer for the Hadley Housing Authority. So she's been involved in the community. I think that this position is it's about our financial management and our cash management for the region. And we need somebody that's going to do that job well and safeguarding our funds. And meeting Kristen and speaking with her, I knew she would be a perfect fit. And I believe that she will do well in this role. So I hope that you would support the recommendation of appointing her the treasurer.
Great, thank you. I also want to say thank you to Jill. She has been here for a very long time and is very good at what she does. So, are there any questions? Deb?
Yeah, this sounds, sounds like everybody's very happy. If you could give us a sense of the hiring process, like the job description, where it went out.
Yep. So it was posted on School Spring, as all of our positions are. I did pass it along to the I forget the name of it, but it's a specific treasury group for the state of Massachusetts. So I had posted it on that website and shared it along with just different connections through the towns, passing it that way. We did have a screening committee that reviewed the resumes, and then we also had another committee that did the interviews that had not seen those resumes, and then after that we put forth the candidate to Dr. Z.
Great. Do you have a follow-up, Deb?
Yeah, so how many finalists were put forward, or was there just the one? From the screening committee to the interview committee?
So there were 3 interviews put forth for in-person interviews.
Thank you.
Thank you. William, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, when's the transition time?
So Kristen will start June 1st, and Jill will be leaving at the end of August. So June, July, and August will be the transition time. And I think that was most important to me, to make sure that the handoff between the two could happen smoothly. And we're in the process of the middle school roof and the borrowing for that. That's a huge thing that the treasurer manages. And so I just want to make sure, with all of her responsibilities, there's plenty of time to make sure that she has a grasp of understanding and nothing is going to slip through the cracks.
And one of the things that I realized was very important, and I feel it was missed, is especially in a district such as Amherst, and the region and Pelham is the intricacies and nuances of understanding how we function, how we operate, especially when it comes to our financials. So in terms of having adequate transition time, we wanted to make sure that that was something that was clear in terms of our processes.
So just a follow-up question. In the motion, when would we need her start date to be treasurer? Because I would assume it's not today then.
No, it would be
June 1st.
June 1st, 2026.
She will take over the duties of treasurer as of June 1st, 2026? Okay. Great. Anything further? Excellent. I will move that the Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee appoint Kristen Yuzerski to serve as treasurer of the Amherst Pelham Regional School District starting June 1st, 2026.
Second.
All those in favor? Excellent. It is unanimous. Well, welcome, Kristen. And again, thank you so much to Jill for all of the work she has done over the years. She is a huge asset.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, what is the next up here? Discussion around the integration of Arms Academy or Chestnut Academy to Arms. Is that?
To go back to A?
I guess so. It's beyond mine, but who knows? Okay. Dr. Z, would you like to kick this off for us?
Sure. First of all, I have to say thank you to the chair. She gathers a lot of questions into documents, and instead of answering those questions for individual committee members, and a lot of times, sometimes when we have, and I want to make that, when we have agenda items coming up, we just try to make sure we can answer as many as we can in the agenda items. So first off, there's a memorandum that was placed by myself. I wrote it in response to questions that came up around placement and building enrollment. Just for context, we did pull as a team the enrollment of the buildings over the years. We went back all the way to fiscal year 1994, where ARMS served like 900 students. And then 1997, when it served 1,021 students. During that period, there were 3 grade configurations. That's when it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Some of you on the committee may have been at ARMS around that time. I say that because a lot of times different.
I was that 9th grade class.
Just saying. And then moving forward, we see that between 1998 and 2025, it's fluctuated where it's gone up as high as 700 students. In 2025, we serve about 375 students. So the building has the capacity for more than 300 students. One of the things that may have happened is that, you know, when space is empty, we kind of spread out and we use various spaces. So we firmly believe that the 145 students who are coming in from Chestnut Street Academy can adequately fit within the ARMS learning space without impacting available space for the students. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss this evening. I also wanted to touch on questions around the iterative process of stakeholder engagement that happened at various levels. I attached a suggested timeline around just different ways we engaged individuals, not just in like the layout, but just their concerns about this process. Listening sessions, staff meetings, walkthroughs. I think one of the most recent ones happened that impacted even where they're going. Principal Rodriguez and the team met with like the ILC teachers, and they suggested a change around where the classroom should be. So the classroom is moved from upstairs to downstairs. When this process first came out, we sat with teachers. We found out about surveys and things that were not shared. We went back to the drawing board. So this has really been an iterative process. Also noting that at the end of it, we also have to take into account the parts that everyone is not thinking about operationally, and making sure that we create a safe and wonderful learning environment for students. So we know the regional school committee voted to allow Amherst sixth grade to be educated within there. In March, there was a lot of conversation around whose purview it is to place the students in the building. I think using the term place the students in the building became the conversation, the quote piece. But the regional school committee votes to allow the usage of the building. And then there's different aspects where it shifts from there. So the principal, being the custodian of the building, would actually place different classrooms with approval and consultation from the superintendent. I did ask Mark for some guidance when this conversation started coming up. I attached that email. Later on, there was a conversation by committee member Laura Jane, made some assertions around the purview. She also contacted Desi. Desi reached out to me to have a meeting. I invited the chair to join me in the meeting. And I've also attached the email that kind of summarizes what happened in that meeting. So this evening, we're going to kind of walk through what the impact is. And Megan, if you could project the slideshow, I will try to share it on this end for everyone. I don't think I can, but we'll see. Hold on 1 second.
I think, is Dr. Z speaking and we don't hear?
Oh, Dr. Z, you're muted. We can't hear you. Thank you, Sarah.
I said a lot of great things about you guys. I was doing that. I just want you to know that's what I did. I said really great things. Let me start. I said, first of all, I'd like to recognize Rich Farrell. Rich is he has the honor of being the assistant principal who's going to be over Chestnut Street. But currently he's actually an Arms Middle School teacher. I first met Rich when I came into the district for my interview. He was actually interim co-principal at the middle school at the time. And so him and I have had various conversations since I've been here. He's not one who is afraid of leadership, but he's also one who is open to being innovative and thoughtful in his processes. And we work very well in our directness together. So Rich, welcome. And so Tanya will also be joining us to talk about certain things. Principal Rodriguez will try to join us. He did have a family engagement, so he may or may not be able to join us this evening. So the first part, and I kind of want to, okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is our definitions. We're looking at low impact, which means minimal to no disruption to current middle school operations. Moderate impact, some adjustments required, but it's manageable within the current systems. And then very high impact, which significant disruption to programming, staffing, and daily operations. And so whenever we have this conversation, we're like, what's the impact, especially on the learning environment? And we figured this is a great opportunity for us to do that. So Tanya, if you want to take the reins on terms of the schedule.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Couple things about the schedule. So as we know, there's certain budget implications that happen with the schedule. So this is an iteration of the schedule. We have multiple versions of the schedule based on where we land in terms of staffing and in terms of the teachers, now that we have Chestnut Street teachers coming together and taking a look with Juan and Rich through the scheduling. And I should also note that we also last night had this Chestnut Street families in for their, I'm going to call it open house, and there was a suggestion that came in that I'm actually taking a look at as well that I'll work with Rich and Juan to review. But right now, as the one you see there, it has our specials happening in the morning, and this is the shared model, so just to kind of give you a point of reference for this. This is the shared model with the specials teachers being at Crocker. So they would start their day at Chestnut Street, and they'll have their first two classes with the students, and then the students will go to recess, have lunch, and then they will have their two core classes, whichever one. There's the shared model of math science teacher and ELA social studies teacher. Then they'll have a community connections course is what it's called during that seventh period. But what it does is it allows for our band and orchestra students to have ensemble time. They'll have their PLTs, personalized learning time. They'll have writing and advisories. That's the time that's set up for that. So that's where there are times where students get pulled out, so they're not missing their content classes. Same with the band and orchestra. And then the last two blocks will be the other two classes that the students will have. So it's possible that in the morning, let's say one student would have math, fifth period, science, sixth period, then they have their PLT, and then they'll have ELA, eighth period, and then social studies, ninth period. But what we're looking at is, if you remember that we're looking for a rotation around world language, again, based on how the schedules work and with whatever budgeting and staffing considerations there are. Amherst's schedule does not impact the region. So if it does not work out with the regional teachers to have a class that aligns with the periods we have available, then we will find we have another version of the schedule that we make sure that we're able to pivot to, so that there is minimal impact on the regional teaching staff. You'll also notice that there is the lunch is before, the sixth grade lunch is before the seventh and eighth grade lunch has traditionally been held, so there's not that impact on shared spacing there, as well as making sure that the time for recess does not impact students being the seventh and eighth grade when they have their outdoor time. And I think that's where we'll go to next, the shared spaces, Dr. Z.
Right, so I just want to reiterate that the schedule was built around the current regional schedule, and it's built in a way that it has minimal to no impact to the regional students. And I know that's the focus of what we're having the conversation on, and I want to keep us within that focus.
So as you look at
We
the
can
shared
do
spaces,
questions
and
at the
Dr.
end.
D mentioned earlier today that the ILC teachers came and they made a suggestion around where the ILC room should be. So this map is a little outdated for that happened this week, end of last week. So ILC would be, if you look there, you'll see Art Room 1, Grade 6. The ILC teachers preferred that location, so that's where that would be located. In the art room for the sixth grade would move upstairs closer to where their sections are. But the shared spaces, just like if you think about the building, the shared spaces would be the cafeteria, the shared space would be the gym. There's a retractable wall in the gym that could be pulled out so that the sixth grade time does not interfere with the seventh, eighth grade schedule. Shared spaces around the instrumental music rooms. Again, working with those orchestra and band teachers, our instrumental teachers, and the staffing at the middle school to make sure those times don't conflict. And I should say staffing at middle school and high school, since those teachers for the instrumentals are shared. And then the other shared spaces would be, actually there are no other shared spaces on this one. Yep, no, that's it. So, the library. The library is upstairs and it's on the other map that's, if you scroll through, you'll see it on the other space. But there's dedicated spaces for the sixth grade so as not to impact the way that the regional middle school has to do their scheduling. The other thing to note that the regional middle school and high school have some shared staffing amongst themselves that also we used and took into consideration as we started looking at the sixth grade schedule to make sure that if there was a teacher, like let's say the world language teacher, it fit not only the middle school schedule, but the high school schedule so that it could fit the sixth grade schedule.
Sarah Beth. Oh,
Yep,
I'd like for
I
us, I
have-
know, but Sarah,
Yeah,
can we
at
keep
the
the
end.
questions till the end?
yep, we are.
Thank you. So, Tanya, you want to go into shared staff?
Sure. With the shared staffing, I think the ones that you already know about is the principal. So Juan Rodriguez is the principal for both the middle school and Chestnut Street Academy. Special ed, the specialized programs have shared staff. So Ames ILC building blocks, the sixth grade elementary models would be shared between the middle school staffing there. World language rotations, again, this is one of those things where I was talking about the scheduling must align. So the way it's designed and the way it was talked about back in 2021, I think is when the initial thought came about of giving kids an opportunity in sixth grade to have a sampling of the world languages that we have. So we have in the region, Chinese, French, Spanish, and Latin. And so what we were looking at is seeing if doing quarterly rotations, and I should mention that our Cominante students would not be a part of the world language rotation because those students have to have a 50-50 English-Spanish model, so they would not have time to do that. The shared staffing also includes our exploratory staffing. So if you, the library is the only staff that is shared between our particular sixth grade and the region. Under the arts program, that's listed there as a possibility. So if ever there was an issue with figuring out the schedule for the world language, then one of the possibilities is to be able to flip to a different version of the schedule, would allow a shared staffing for art, not for art, excuse me, for drama and music, which is the course class there. But again, those are different iterations of the programs based on scheduling, based on staffing.
We
And
listed
also
this,
based on budget.
sorry. So we listed this one as moderate because it included budgetary considerations. It included changes to scheduling. It includes, so again, going back to how we determine what was low, what was moderate. We have staff that was within one district that would now be working with two. So again, this one has moderate impact to the region. All right, the big kicker, I think we can all kind of walk through this together. So the logistics and facilities. One of the key things that we looked at when we came in, and I know this is a big one, was the fact of the placement of where sixth grade would be, its overarching impact to the middle school, and having various conversations. Throughout the conversations with the middle school staff, as well as, and I'd like to say good evening to Principal Rodriguez. He's joined us this evening. Throughout our repeated conversations around what would work well in terms of integration, we looked at having a dedicated sixth grade wing. We also took into the fact that we wanted to avoid as much disruption for our primary seventh and eighth graders, but we wanted to make sure additionally that the disruption was to the flow of the building. And so we looked at student movement and flow. We looked at transportation alignment in terms of making sure that our sixth graders were riding the bus. And then the seventh and eighth graders, they would be riding at the same times. They're coming from all coming from Amherst area. And we also looked at the functionality. Some of the things that we had in terms of key considerations, so we compared both layouts, the ones from 2019 versus the 2026 ones that we had. We've been asked repeatedly about student experience. So when we think about placing the sixth graders directly in the back hallway, it kind of limited the environment of the middle school, where we were then splitting the seventh and eighth graders into two sides of the building. When we looked at the suggestion of putting them on a dedicated portion of a wing and kind of making an L curve where 2/3 of the building supported the seventh and eighth graders in a continuous flow, so they can have access to their teachers, they can have access to their supports. It actually created more of a defined space and was developmentally appropriate. There was now a clear identity for sixth grade versus blending them in the middle of seventh and eighth grade. So there's different things that we went through in these conversations. When the staff gave feedback around looking at the placement of specialized programs. One of the key things we did was we looked at, they were the first ones who brought to my attention the study that was done in 2019. In meeting with the staff, I learned that conversation. I learned about other things around, the world language, the proposal. So I'm really grateful to the individuals who shared. And we wanted to make sure that we looked at the most critical was long-term sustainability, especially for what it was in terms of our 7th and 8th graders. We did not want a model that would really, really disrupt in terms of the flow of the building. I think at one point there was a conversation about doors that were supposed to be built to block off hallways. That conversation we're no longer, we're not having. And as we talked about the building capacity, we also knew. So we felt that based on our rubric, the 2019 model would have had more of a high operational impact to the middle school building, whereas we were able to lower and contain and manage the 2026 model a little bit better. And so in that, we also have the most recent draft. I have both. I labeled them, the April 14th and the May 8th. And then, as we talked about in the May 8th, and it might be since then, Principal Rodriguez did a walkthrough with the ILC team, and they switched the rooms from downstairs to upstairs. I kind of want to stop presenting. I don't know if Rich or Juan, you want to share anything about the impact to middle school and just how the conversations are going in terms of keeping the impact low.
Sure. When you mentioned flow earlier, one of the sort of added pieces is our 6th graders having access to outside for recess time and being able to do that without causing a disruption and having more immediate access to our egress doors. And so being on that side of the building, they'd be able to exit onto sort of, what we call the hill. And then we're also looking at reclaiming part of the spaces outside to make them accessible play spaces in the wintertime. And so that, provides some additional ease of access into those outdoor spaces. Specifically about the IOC, moving that program to the first floor with input from the IOC and ESP staff, increases ease of access for any students with mobility concerns, that they'd be able to just enter directly onto the first floor and not have to traverse the stairs or use the elevator. They are still surrounded by gen ed students, where we have our art classroom, our cafeterias, our drama classroom, music classroom, auditorium. It provides direct access to the BCBA in their office, as well as to the nurse. The nurse's office also has a single user restroom, which is something that some of our students in the ILC and ESP need. And so it just works on many levels. It also provides direct access to courtyard, so students in ILC can access the outdoors in a more controlled environment. And so that's something that the staff from the ILC was very happy to be able to access. In terms of the middle school, 7th and 8th grade staff, having those rooms in the configuration that they would be allows us to reorganize the classrooms in a way where it supports the middle school model, it supports the team model, supports the looping model, where our 7th grade teachers can be sort of clustered together in a section of the building. Our 8th grade teachers can be sort of clustered in a section of the building. And so once those students and teachers are assigned to those spaces, they would continue on to the next year in those same spaces. And so I know that there's been a lot of advocacy around continuity. And so this is a way to be able to sort of honor and recognize that, while at the same time accommodating for some of the changes that we need to make for next year. And so I know that change can sometimes be difficult or be challenging, but we have to embrace those changes. And sometimes it's things that may not have happened at the middle school. Uh, you know, I feel like next year's going to be one of those years where there are going to be a lot of firsts, and that's okay. We embrace those firsts because it's part of establishing a new culture at Chestnut Street Academy and establishing a new culture at Amherst Regional Middle School.
Thank you, Principal Rodriguez. Sarah Bess?
Yep. Okay. So as this was going through, there were several hands that went up, and I appreciate people waiting to the end to have the conversation. So I want to start by saying thank you to Dr. Z and Principal Rodriguez and Tanya and Rich. What is your official title? Assistant Principal
Rich is going to be
Farrow?
the assistant. Go ahead, Rich.
Assistant Principal.
All right, Assistant Principal Farrow, sorry. And so it is clear that there has been a lot of thought that went into this organization, and it has been in progress for a very long time. And I think we have come to the end point, which is where it always gets a little sticky. And so I just wanted to start by saying thank you to everyone for all of the work that has gone into this. So on my list of people who have comments, I have Laura Jane, Bridget, Deb, and then Sarah. And I also want to remind us that we are having this discussion from the regional viewpoint, that I understand we all have elementary students that we feel very passionately about, but we are having a regional discussion tonight about from our middle school viewpoints. That being said, Laura Jane.
Okay, so I have a number of questions. My first question is for Dr. Z. Dr. Z, on April 8th, I directly asked you for all the written guidance that you had from DESE. Can you help me understand why you withheld that information that you received on April 14th until this posting?
So 2 things, Laura Jane. First of all questions are directed to me. And second of all, your email on April 8th was an accusatory email where you basically stated that I had no purview. I responded and asked you for what you received. You stated who you spoke to, and you asked me for what I received. I also told you in that email, I included the attorney. You removed the attorney. You asked for guidance from DESE. At the time, I did not have written guidance from DESE. I had a conversation from DESE. I had a conversation with DESE afterwards, and I sent it. If you wanted additional information, you could have done so. You could have asked for additional information. By the time of your request, there was nothing written from DESE.
That's inaccurate. I asked you to provide all the written information, and you received it 4 days later, and you didn't give it to me. And so I'm still trying to understand.
So I am not going to engage in a back and forth with you where you are trying to be
Pause,
respectful.
everybody. Okay, I understand that this is a tension point, but we are having a conversation from our regional perspective. We are talking about how this is going to affect.
Okay.
I understand that the
ask my next
timing
question.
is frustrating about things. However, that is a conversation we can have at a different time.
Okay, but information should not be withheld when it's asked for. That's a fact. And you can call it accusatory, you can call it whatever you want. I'm happy to share that email with the entire community, that's fine. I will move on.
Thank you.
Can you tell me about your conversation with the 7th graders? How did that go?
It went well.
Based on what? Can you describe it with more detail, please?
We spoke about their concerns. I answered their questions. We engaged back and forth around what they thought would have been problems. Myself and Principal Rodriguez walked through that. Some of their questions were around access to Chromebooks, if the 6th graders were bringing theirs. We said yes. One of the major questions that they asked was, would students from Chestnut Street Academy be allowed to attend an Arms Middle School dance? We clarified for them. That was the first time that question was asked, but however, Chestnut Street Academy is Chestnut Street Academy and middle school is middle school. So for me, the conversation went well because it's always a good time to engage with students to clarify whatever misconceptions they had or provide them with information.
So what I heard from numerous staff was that the students felt defeated and discouraged by that conversation. So I think it's important that you hear that.
That is the first time I'm hearing that. I actually did not get that sense. I was not the only person engaged in a conversation. And if that is what you determined, I would have loved to have heard that prior to hearing it at a school committee meeting, so I could have gone back and checked in with the students.
I mean, it's not too late to do that. So I do want to ask Principal Rodriguez this question. How would you describe the morale of the staff and the students regarding this plan move, the middle school staff and students?
So I don't think that Principal Rodriguez should answer that question. I feel like that is a loaded question, but if he wants to give an overarching sense of what he feels would add to it or shift it, I think that right now this is a critical year for the Amherst district as well as for the middle school. I think there's a lot of things that's moving and shaking and changing. There's other things that's affecting the middle school. So I would just prefer that if he not have to answer that question right now.
But he's the principal of the school, so it's his school. So I guess I'm trying to understand why you don't want him to answer a question about his staff and his school.
Principal Rodriguez, do you feel like you can answer for how all of your staff feel at this time?
I cannot speak about every single person's feelings and sentiments. However, what I will say is that change can be difficult, and there are going to be teachers who will need to, they'll be changing spaces. Some individuals who've been in classrooms for many years, and so that's going to be an adjustment for those individuals. And so, if that is something that that is impacting their feelings, then I'm open to having conversations and working through that. But we do have a plan. We've been mindful and very intentional about where certain moves are going to happen. It's not totally arbitrary or willy-nilly. There's been many conversations with many different people and considering many different factors so that the middle school experience for the staff as well as the students is maximized and positive. And so, as I mentioned before, we're being very intentional about honoring the middle school model, honoring the teams, honoring the looping model where folks who are working with students in 7th grade will be able to continue working with those same students in 8th grade and then looping back down. And while next year will be disruptive in the sense that they'll have to be changing spaces, the long-term goal is that that happens next year and then that's set, right? And so folks, after the change from this year to next year, they'll be in those rooms and in those teams for a longer period of time, at least for a 2-year looping cycle and hopefully longer. As the needs of our students change with openings or vacancies, retirements, etc., we may need to make some shifts in our composition of teams and things, and so that can also be, a source of discomfort. But if it's what's in the best interest of our students, I'm confident that our staff will cooperate with those shifts and adjustments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr.
Wait,
Z, I have the same question.
do you
I have 3 more questions.
Okay, how about one more, and then we can add you to the back of the list, because
Okay.
there are many other people that would like to be
Okay.
comment tonight.
So I guess I would just ask Dr. Z the same exact question. How would you describe the morale of the staff and educators at the middle school at this time?
I'll survey the morale of the staff so I can give you a more adequate answer.
Thank you. Bridget?
So thank you for this presentation. It's really comprehensive. I think You know, the most important thing for us with our regional hat is what are the impacts going to be on the regional students? And so I have a couple of questions related to the first few pages and then sort of a more big overarching question. So the first one may be for Tanya, which is just like, where in the schedule are the special ed supports? I know there used to be a guided study block, but I didn't see that there, so I'm curious about that.
So the schedule that's posted right now is that you're referring to is the sixth grade schedule. We didn't post the middle school schedule.
So
And
there are
guidance
no
study was
changes.
actually removed, when we got the DESI feedback. But are you asking in terms of the impact to guided study or anything else? Just so you could clarify.
Is there any impact on the seventh and eighth grade schedule then? Because I think that then that would be probably the part that matters to us in this meeting.
The sixth grade schedule is not impacting the seventh grade schedule, if that's what you're referring to. So what's listed is the sixth grade version. It just also includes the times for the high school on the left and then the middle school in the middle.
Okay, that leads to my second question, so that's good, because with that time, it says bell schedule, and it's just a really simple thing, but I've been in like other schools where there's schools within a school, and I was wondering what the plan is for the bells, because if they all sound the same, the kids get confused, but like if one does music and the other does chimes, or, you know what I mean? So I'm just throwing that out there for the fun of putting it on the table. And the last question I had was sort of the logistics facilities about the bathroom layout, and I wondered, where are the gender-neutral ones, and is there one in the sixth grade academy and then on the other side?
I'll let Mr. Rodriguez or Farah talk about the gender-neutral bathrooms.
Sure. There are two gender-neutral restrooms on the second floor, one in each hallway. One of those happens to be in what will be the Chestnut Street Academy side of the building. That is not to say that students who are, for example, in a seventh grade science lab that is 20 feet away from that restroom are not allowed to use it. They will be able to access that space for proximity reasons, right? There's no sense in having those students have to walk halfway around the second floor in order to use the restroom. That's really not fair. So the restrooms will be accessible to all students, and there are two gender-neutral restrooms on the second floor.
Oh, super, thanks so much. That was
You're
just a
welcome.
question I kept getting, and I thought maybe that little GN, that's what it meant, but I didn't know for sure, so.
Thank you.
Yes, that is correct.
I have one
And
last,
then there's also a staff restroom on each side, in each hallway on the second floor as well.
oh, good. All right, thanks. I have one last question, and I think it's probably for Dr. Z. There's like 8 pages in this packet, including what was probably a costly legal review about purview. But like, at the end of the day, our purview as school committee is just making sure like whatever changes we're making impact the students' well-being in a good way at the middle school. I think there's a lot of evidence to that effect, just even in the cost savings of the new model. But you mentioned that it's an iterative process, and so I think this question of purview came out of a lot of community concerns that came up. And so I'm wondering, what were the main concerns that you heard, and how did you iterate them in so they were addressed in the plan that you currently have?
So first of all, I sent an email to the attorney and asked questions. I attached it, so I did not go through a costly review. I just sent an email with some questions that's attached, asking for some guidance. And I also met with Desi, so I just wanted to clarify that. The second part is there were various conversations. I received emails. So for example, I received emails from our SLPA, or SLP, sorry, not our SLPA, from our SLP, our speech language pathologist, around concerns in terms of the room spacing and access to information and where they were being placed. I shared that concern and those feedback with the team, And so even when I went back and had a follow-up conversation, there was like a recognition that the change was put into process. So each conversation that we had with various stakeholders, I documented it. We have weekly or bi-weekly meetings. We share information that we hear as we're sitting down and talking. So if Tanya gets some information through her sessions or emails, she brings that to the team. If Mr. Rodriguez does, Mr. Farrell has joined the team meetings. So the same thing would be for him to come in and share his perspectives or even what he received. And as a team, we kind of put things in place and make shifts and changes. I'm sure there's something that's going to come up because last night there was a orientation evening. So some people had some concerns and comments that came up. I'm sure they're going to bring that back to the team and then we'll present it again. So that's what I mean by it's iterative.
You know, I understand what iterative meant. I just meant like, what were the main things that you feel like you've accomplished and resolved as you iterated? And that's my last question.
Thank you.
I think that the couple things that came from this for me, and it's not just in terms of the facilities, but even the broader scope of what we're implementing. It starts, or one of the greatest things was starting with the fact that we went back to some of that initial information that we were brought forth from the initial planning group and was able to take bits and pieces of that. So for example, when we talk about the world language rotation, that's not my idea or this team's idea. Like that came from the original working group from 2020 or 2022, who I think they were 2022. There's so many different documents that we've been through to sit down and look at this. So a lot of, for me, it's taking some of the what was all there, taking those aspects, taking everything that we've learned in the process and putting it into action. And that's why, and I can see it in different parts. And the one key thing that I really love is the world language rotation. I also like the fact that there are aspects of, for example, the considerations in terms of, oh my gosh, in trying to keep and honor our Caminantes program for Amherst, we were able to take that feedback and make sure that that's their curricularly. For me, all of this is starting to meld together because as a it's starting to kind of meld together because as the superintendent of both districts kind of doing that work, I would also say making sure that we were able to get recess in speaking with the students in 5th grade, they were very clear around recess and how that works. The 7th graders, when we talked to them, like I said, they were very clear on just like making sure that resources that they asked, are they coming with their own budget, right? And the conversation was like, yes. And then asking them what their concerns were and then trying to have a conversation with them around like what that's going to look like. One of the things that they talked about was, you know, switching classrooms. And I said, do you realize that when you go to high school, like next year, your last year, you're going to be switching classrooms? And, you know, so we had like various conversations. I think if I had to pinpoint one thing, there have been so many, but I think the best thing of it is that every time we engage in a conversation, it prompts us to think deeper.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Deb?
So I had 4 questions. I don't expect to get through all 4 of them. How many can I do at a time?
How long are they?
My questions aren't long. I'm not sure how long the answers are. Let's
All right.
just start from the top
Start
and
and
see how
it
far
goes.
we get.
Yep.
One is a simple one. Can you go back to the floor plans and just spell out for me where the the ILC and the I didn't follow that whole part of where the two, like switching the art room with the ILC possibly, and where Bright / SAC and Lift and ILC, can you just, like, I know what it is for the elementary, the building, we're the equivalent of the building blocks and Ames programs in the current plan, and then possibly what will it look like differently?
Dr. Z, would you like me to
Yep.
Do that? Okay. Okay, so we'll start in the upper left corner, it says C10, C11. That'll be the student support program that aligns with the building blocks program from elementary school. So that's one of our specialized special education programs. Next, and along the top row over to the right-hand side, C17A, a little bit further down, right there. Yeah, perfect. C17A and C19, which are directly to the right. Those are, that's for the Ames program. Those are for our students who have been diagnosed with being on the autism spectrum. And so that program is there to support those students. If we go to the left, yep, right there, that is on the first floor, and that's is being proposed as the new home of the Essential Skills Program or the Intensive Learning Center. And so that space has, it's one large room, and then it has sort of a smaller subdivided room. So it provides two classroom spaces within one space, which is something that the ILC staff really appreciated. And then within that sort of smaller space, there's an even smaller room that can be equipped as a quiet room for students who may have that prescribed in their IEP as an accommodation. And so that space, that entire room really accommodates a number of different needs that students in our ILC really are in need of. The art room that was originally going to be in that space would then bump up to the second floor. And if we scroll down a little bit, C28, right directly at the bottom, right there, yep. That would be the new art room. It's a large room. It's equipped with a sink, which our art teachers need in order to rinse their brushes and supplies, students wash their hands, etc. So that would be the new assigned art room space for Chestnut Street Academy.
Deb, I know there's a lot of discussion, but the quiet room is actually a small office. This is our former PD center. This is where the PD center was.
That was my question. Does it have,
Yes.
does it have, what color are the walls?
They're white, and
That's-
there's a window
that's-
in the door.
That's what I'm asking, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then to, letting that part go, just really want to know what the motivation, what was the argument that the educators put forward that this would be a better space?
That what?
That this would be a better space than the one that's currently assigned?
Oh, Wang?
Sure. One is that it's on the first floor, and so for students with mobility concerns, it would be a lot easier to get there. And so right now we have some students who have a difficult time going up and down the stairs, or who don't do well in elevators, and so getting to their classroom spaces on the second floor can sometimes be a challenge. And so we would mitigate that challenge by having the space accessible on the first floor. Secondly, many of our students in ILC or ESP require medical support from the nurse. And so being on the first floor actually brings them closer to the nurse's station so that the nurse can respond more promptly, more timely to those needs. The nurse's station also has a single-user restroom, has two single-user restrooms that some of our students in those programs have toileting plans, and so it helps to, again, support that need. As I mentioned earlier, one added benefit is that there's direct access to the courtyard, so students upstairs don't have immediate access to the outside. It takes a little bit longer to get there. There's a door that goes directly from that classroom into the courtyard. And then lastly, when we took the tour with the ILC staff and we looked at the different spaces that could potentially be used as quiet rooms, that space on the first floor was the best suited for that purpose, where it would, it could be retrofitted to support those needs while causing the minimalist amount of disruption to any other student
Thank you. So, second question? That was all one.
That was third.
That was my third. There were, okay. So, talking about retrofitting, part of the original plan, as I understand it, the town provided $450,000 to the district for renovations associated with this. Was my understanding, or at least it's been pointed out to me by one of the town councilors, that part of that rationale for that allotment of money, and I have not gone back and looked at it, so I'm using secondhand information, is to put solar tubes at a relatively low cost, relatively compared to $450,000. So there are these tubes that bring light down into the hallways and lighten them up. So if you would perhaps look, everybody's looking puzzled. This is 2019. If you wouldn't mind, I guess that answers that question. No, nobody's heard of it. Nobody's planning on doing it.
We did that. That's you are the first person.
Okay.
I have heard bring that forward.
Okay. So I can follow up on that, maybe send you that information.
I will say I was here in 2019, and I don't remember that ever being part of the conversation.
It was part of a bunch of stuff that was done just before the world changed, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then put me back on.
I already did.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Okay. Thank you for this presentation and all the work that's gone into it. I'll say first that I understand that it's a pain to pack up one's classroom and move, but our educators are professionals, and the magic happens in the teaching, not in the specific space that they have. So I'm sure they'll rise to the occasion. It'll be fine. What my concern is, and I hope for all of us, is to make sure that the experience, the education that the 7th and 8th graders receive is not impaired by this big change. And it sounds to me, so I'm just looking for confirmation, that is the case, that the academic model for 7th and 8th graders is not changing, their curriculum and their academic supports are not changing, or at least if there are any changes, it's maybe because of budget, it's not because of Chestnut Street Academy. Their time on learning is not changing, their range of options or exploratories and things like that is not changing. All that's changing is that some things will happen in different classrooms, which the rising 7th graders, they don't have any expectations about that. In any case, they'll be new to the building, as will the 6th graders. It provokes anxiety in students when they go to a new building. But I believe that within a week, everybody knows exactly where they are and where they need to go. So it's my understanding from this presentation that this Chestnut Academy, Street Academy, is not going to hurt the academic program for the 7th and 8th graders. Am I right in drawing that conclusion?
You're correct. That's one of the reasons for shifting the classrooms closer. I know that there were some concerns that raised out in the beginning of the school year around the middle school model and different things. Nothing that prompted any immediate change, and in meeting with the teachers, I'm still reviewing some of the research that was shared and having conversations. There's nothing that's changing in the academic model of ARMS. And so for me, I don't see impact to their experience in terms of how instruction takes place. I believe that there was a balance in like the lab classrooms and different things. I don't know, Rich, if you want to add in leaving the middle school teaching role, going into the administrative role around, your thoughts of next year.
Yeah. As you said earlier, Dr. Z, I mean, our building, when I was first here in 2003 to 2008, I mean, we had close to 800 students between seventh and eighth grade at that point in time. So we can definitely fit this many students, no problem, in the building, and the way that things have been restructured. You know, the science labs are a piece of why we have to put things in certain places because of their proximity at the front of the building. And so they've been split up, I think, as well as they could be. I think there's a lot of things about, you know, this situation that aren't ideal, but I think that's been kind of our situation in this building for a long time. I would say, having taught here and having gone to school here as well. And I do not see the sixth grade academy, the Chestnut Street Academy, coming in impacting the teaching that goes on in the classrooms and the great things that are happening in the seventh and eighth grade. I think that those things will continue to happen, and room changes are something that occur frequently. I've taught in 3 different classrooms during my different times of teaching in the building, and I think a lot of teachers would say, you know, similar things who have been there for 20 plus years. So I'm confident that great things will still continue to happen in the seventh and eighth grade classrooms for sure.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All set. William.
So I have a few questions. And I'm getting some answers from looking at the map too, so that's good. For bullying and harassment and et cetera, I know that our middle school now has a full load when it comes to who does the investigations. How will that impact bringing in the sixth grade? Is there going to be a separate individual or separate individuals that'll be doing the bullying and harassment? Or is it going to be incorporated in with the current 7th, 8th grade? Dean.
So it's very funny that you said that, because we're experiencing a situation within a district right now where it's not even in the same building with bullying and harassment. It's within 2 separate buildings, but the team is working together to solve the issue. I had a meeting with them this week. And so there's a couple of things that we talked about in terms of outlining the procedures for Chestnut Street and ARMS, kind of making sure we outline and talk about the cultures and how things feed up, as well as how things would be handled and investigated. And that's one of the key things that we want to definitely outline. I think in the last budget, and Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, we also, because of some of the roles, for example, the dean, we kind of put a percentage towards the Chestnut Street, because we know that as the students interact with each other, things may happen. And so there's certain staff members that we may want to make sure have an eye, but also have access to data to support. I know that Rich, in speaking to him today, he can talk about it, talked about bringing the staff together to outline some procedures. And there was some staff, there was a group process that happened. And that's on, so that kind of lends into the Amherst side, but we are working out the protocol so we can clarify what happens under one building.
So currently the dean, the dean
So it won't
position
just
in the
be the-
6th, 7th, and 8th will also be doing the investigations for 6th grade?
So we haven't identified that. We
Okay.
haven't said that that's what's going to happen. I think that we're leaning towards the AP or even a counselor.
Okay.
Rich, you want to share some of your ideas?
Yeah, I can just speak a little bit too to my experience with handling. I was the dean of students for 3 years and 2 years, 2009 and 10, and I was the athletic director at the high school for 8 years, and then coming back to the middle school and being a teacher and administrator a couple of years ago. You know, and so I've dealt with a lot of bullying and harassment situations, and negative behaviors. And like Dr. Z was saying, a lot of times once you start peeling back the layers of these investigations, you start entering different school buildings, in terms of things that have happened, to seventh graders, and things that are being reported that started happening when they were in second and third grade. And then there may be older siblings, or family members who are getting involved, and literally into things that are happening at home and on computers. So these bullying investigations really are like very widespread, and you think you might have something really straightforward happening at the beginning between two students, and then you start to talk with them and some of the people on the perimeter of that, and it expands really quickly. So I think at this point, the district is really trying to spend some time to clarify, right, procedures and protocols and exactly how we're going to interact next year. I see myself being, being the assistant principal for the sixth grade academy. I see myself as probably the primary person who's going to be dealing with a lot of the initial contact, and then figuring out who else we need to bring into the mix at that point, because there are times when it's appropriate to have a guidance counselor involved in some of the interview process, but guidance counselor also has to have a different kind of relationship than myself as an administrator has to have with students. So there are going to be times when that's not going to make sense to have them involved. So a little bit of it is dependent upon the situation, and figuring out exactly kind of what the protocols and procedures are going to be for the sixth grade academy, and then how we will interact with the dean of students at the middle school. Obviously, Mr. Rodriguez can jump in here as well, but since he's leading both ships at the same time, he will obviously be an integral part of this as well. But I think a lot of the interviews and the handling of the situations, that I see that as being something that I will be handling for the most part with the sixth grade, and then in conjunction with administrators sometimes across the district. We have a lot of conversations that happen in these bullying investigations.
Right. And so the other thing I would add is, it will also be informed in part by numbers, right, by volume. And so Rich, as the assistant principal, will have a number of responsibilities. And so, if he needs additional support, then that's when our dean of students, who's well versed in these processes, can also help distribute some of that load. I myself can also be, part of that process in terms of conducting investigations and making determinations. And so it is really a shared effort to ensure that all of our students feel safe and supported from 6th through 8th grade.
Thank you.
And then
Final follow-up?
Yeah, I have two more, sorry. It would be for the nurses, does the nurses office have the capacity to add the sixth grade? And then also in the same scheme of things, that I noticed the PTOT is for 6 through 8. So do we have the availability within the footprint and the staff to support the sixth graders and not impact the 7th and 8th graders for nursing, PT, and OT?
So we went through the state requirements in terms of the capacity for a nurse and the number of students. We definitely took that into consideration, and I believe that we added that into our staffing plan so that it does not impact, Chestnut Street does not impact ARMS.
Perfect.
So based on what we have, yes. In terms of PTOT, I would say that what was presented to me and what's been presented, those numbers were reviewed by SSO. They were walked through. A lot of those individuals also, that might be the space, but that doesn't necessarily outline a specific individual and their specific caseload. So many of those specialized providers, and Tanya, you could join in, actually move from building to building. And so that may reflect the spacing needed, but that doesn't reflect the workload or caseload.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Okay, so I have two questions. First is about, wait, I just lost it. As a follow-up, is there a follow-up on Common students who are sixth graders now becoming seventh, and how a language question was going to be answered, whether or not they were going to get access to some sort of accelerated or different language class than the other seventh graders?
So the district, one, we heard the public comments, and two, the chair did bring forth a concern to me that came through a school committee member around that. The conversation that we've been having is what are the possibilities? I believe that Tanya and Principal Rodriguez talked about, and even Celia, our MLE, talked about possibly doing an advanced Spanish course. However, all new courses have to be brought before the school committees. Coming on, this is an Amherst district only program. We at the region support 4 towns: Leverett, Pelham,
Shutesbury.
Leverett, Pelham, Shutesbury, and Amherst. And so I said it in the wrong order. I'm never accustomed to saying it in that order. And so we also have to take into account at the region what we're offering for all 4 towns and the students who are coming in from all 4 towns. We want to make sure that we're creating that equity in access. And so I believe on our next meeting, there is a agenda item where we're going to present some of our thoughts, what we would like to outline as a possible pilot. We are in contact or contacting our districts to confirm our numbers, because we have some numbers and we want to confirm the numbers so that when we present it, we're answering all questions, but we're creating a regional course or opportunity for individuals who may be advanced in language, but it will not follow the Caminantes model. It will be the regional model in terms of a course.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I guess clarifying, if I have a question about the 6th grade academy schedule, like the one that was presented last night, should I ask that here or should I hold on to that for the Amherst meeting?
That's the Amherst
an
meeting
Amherst-
conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yep, all good then.
But if you want, you can also email the superintendent and we can get that, or email the chair to send it to the superintendent, and then we could get it answered for you.
Gotcha, thank you.
Tim.
Thank you all for the information and the presentation. It's helpful to see it. And thank you for uploading it to the agenda, at least a couple days in advance, I think. I was able to look at it on Sunday, and then I was able to look at it again earlier today. And that second look, when you're looking through 12 documents with which, most of it, to me as a regional school committee member, is completely new information. So that's much appreciated. Thinking about this in advance as a regional school committee member for months, I haven't really known what to expect or to say or do, because there's nothing I can do to change it. It is really an Amherst decision, and we're all just living in it. And so I've just kind of said, well, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But my impression of tonight's presentation is that there has been a lot of thorough work and engagement to figure this out. I know for certain that it's going to be a difficult transition, and I think that the team who is talking to us tonight and the rest of the staff in the middle school are going to be able to figure it out, and problems are going to come to our attention when the committee needs to know about them and discuss them, and we're just going to figure it out. I would say that there are clearly some specific concerns that I want to know more about. I'm not going to talk about them right now because I think that I will find out more about them eventually. It's not clear to me what we really need as a committee beyond what has been provided here. It's not clear to me what standard or metrics we should be, as a committee, thinking about this transition. So if we could kind of think in terms of, like, if this isn't good enough, what would be good enough would maybe be a helpful way to construct ongoing discussion about this, because we're going to keep talking about it next year. And if we just say, well, I don't like that, that doesn't give the school much to work with. So if we can say, I would rather see it done this way, what can we do to work towards that goal? I would find that helpful. And to that end, I found the presentation helpful in the sense that it defined impact, low, moderate, and high, and then assess several topics according to that impact. I found that helpful. It tells me, the areas that are moderate impact are the things that I should pay more attention to: shared staff, logistics and facilities. I would say, based on the discussion I'm hearing tonight, I thought of another, a couple of topics that you could think about fitting into this rubric of impact. One of them, I think seeing the 7th and 8th grade schedule in terms of how it will be impacted would be sensible, to at least just visualize it. You may already know that the impact will be low, and that's fair, but I think we're going to see some surprises. So it would be helpful to start thinking now in terms of let's dedicate an additional slide to 7th and 8th grade scheduling impact, just so that we are, planting the seeds for that conversation. And I would also maybe consider, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but staff impact, not impact on students due to sharing of staff, but impact on the staff of the transition. I think that deserves its own slide. And maybe that belongs in a discussion of climate. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate use of, school climate, but I think there's going to be a school climate impact, certainly a staff morale impact. That's worthy of everyone's attention. It deserves its own slide. So those are my recommendations. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I had myself, yes, I have another round coming up. I did want to offer an opportunity to Anna if you wanted to say anything. You don't have to, just an opportunity before we start with round 2.
I would like to note that even though many of the questions are kind of related to the region and the middle school, they are largely more related to the 6th grade academy, the Chestnut Street Academy. And I just want to remind the other committee members that this is about the middle school. It is not about the 6th grade academy. And we can talk about the 6th grade academy at the Amherst School Committee meeting, but this is really about the middle school. And if we could just focus on the middle school, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. I have myself on the list. I think Sarah hit what I was going to say, looking at the things that are being offered. It sounds like a lot of thought went into how it's going to, the schedule and the classes that are being offered at the 6th grade level will impact the regional students. So just to reiterate, there's the classes / teaching staff that are being shared between the 6th grade academy and the regional students. My understanding from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing here is that the educational experience of the 7th and 8th graders is not going to be, what was your word, Sarah? Diminished? Impaired. Every year, things change, regardless of if you are in the same room, right? On the same committee, 2 people can change, and it gives you a whole new committee. So, there's always parts and pieces that are going to be updating and changing. And having recently lived with several middle schoolers, it's a tricky time to exist in your own skin. So things are constantly moving and shifting. So I also wanted to say how much I appreciated the clear amount of thought that went into all of the things that have led up to our conversation tonight. So I guess that was my only question, right? That, like Sarah said, we are correct in assuming that the educational experience of our regional students is not going to be impaired or diminished.
Correct, and that's our goal. I think one of the key things that we've been trying to do as a team is make sure we balance and honor as much as we can, but also limit changes. There's been a lot of change recently in all 3 districts, or a lot of things we're preparing for change, and so we wanted to make sure that we could honor as much as we can, especially when we came to shifting spaces.
Great. Okay. Round two,
Excellent.
larging,
Thank you.
which we will, if it is again a whole bunch of big, heavy, long questions, if it gets to be too much, we will do round three so we can keep going. We do have lots of things on our agenda tonight, but I understand that this has been an item of high interest.
So my first piece is a comment, which is there's not a single person in this room making public comment on something that is really critical to something that impacts the region and the 7th and 8th grade. And that's very telling to me. That doesn't mean that everyone's happy with this change. It means that people don't feel comfortable coming to share their concerns. And so I know that everyone keeps trying to push it back to, oh, teachers don't like to have their classrooms moved. But the reality is the morale in the middle school, regardless of whether we want to say, oh, we have to do a survey to find out, it's been very disrupted over the last X number of years with the number of principals that they've had and the lots of very big challenges that this school has experienced. And I feel like we can't minimize that, and that there's something about like being like, oh, teachers can just move classrooms as they will, is just a tiny piece of not giving voice to the students and to the educators. And that I'm not going to stop beating this drum. I'm just not, because I know I have been talking to teachers, I have been talking to students. I know that they are not, this is very hard on them. And so to say that there's going to be no impact on their educational experience, if we lose teachers because of this, there will be an impact. That's the reality. If our teachers continue to feel beaten down and unheard, that is going to impact everyone's experience. If the 7th graders don't understand why suddenly the space gets beautified for the 6th graders, but their own space doesn't change, and that's a question I'm going to lead to, that also impacts the educational experience. There's more than just what happens in the classroom for the teaching. It's about how involved and engaged the community feels and how much ownership they feel. And I feel like literally not a single person from the union is here. There's not a student here. No teachers came. No ILC people came. No one came to share their thoughts or their feelings. The only question we had was about the schedule, the shift and potential shift of the start time. So that is, we can't ignore that despite whether we want to or not, right? So I guess one question I have, out of many questions I have, is I know that there's a plan to beautify the space for the 6th graders. What is the plan to beautify the space for the 7th and 8th graders?
So I would like to just start off by saying that we have a maintenance plan. The beautifying the space, and I'm going to say this because it's going to cross all projects. One of the key things that we wanted to make sure was that no one felt, for lack of a better word, less in this situation, especially when it came to maintenance and upkeep of the buildings. What ended up happening and what you're referring to was during the 4 days of break, the maintenance team started like priming certain areas on the Chestnut Street side. They did not make it to the other areas. There are some murals across various walls that we want to honor and keep because they're a part of the culture and community of the building. But there is a summer maintenance plan for the middle school building on the regional side within what we're able to do. I also want to say that I recognize that change can create discomfort and affect morale across the community. It is important to me that people, students, faculty, staff feel heard. It is important to me that individuals feel respected and that we are able to engage honestly in conversations without drawing and stating conclusions or inferences as facts. Giving voice to stakeholders has been a critical part of this process, and it does not mean that every perspective will lead to the same conclusion. But it does mean that those perspectives deserve to be acknowledged, which they were, and considered with care as we make decisions in the best interests of all students. And so with that, I just clearly said there is a summer maintenance plan for the middle school. There is some work that has begun on one side, and we want to make sure that we talk about what it would take to actually beautify the campus for all students.
Okay, I have
Thank
one
you.
more.
Great. Okay.
The guidance from DESE, not about who gets to decide, but about what should happen when a program enters an existing program, is to minimize disruption. And while I appreciate calling it moderate, I don't think that's accurate. I think the impact on the 7th and 8th grade on the existing middle school is high. And I feel like it's deceptive to call it moderate, because you are asking all of the educators to shift their spaces, and you're asking the students to move. And you're moving them into, instead of using the existing surplus spaces or the more flexible spaces, you're actually moving them into places where existing programs are. And that feels like against the spirit of collaboration, and also against the spirit of DESE's guidance. So I'm just curious how that can be justified, given, and this is not about like who gets to decide, but why it gets decided.
So I am, first of all, I'm gonna go to the point of you're stating that there's surplus spaces as if there was no space that was ever used in the middle school at no point. I don't think that that is the case. I think there were probably classrooms that were in rotation, but to my knowledge, majority or all classrooms were in use. And so for me, this plan of action where the Amherst region voted to accept them, there had to be an analysis of space. There had to be an analysis of what would actually work best for individuals in terms of flow, in terms of what needed to move, and with the most minimal impact. I want you to know that anywhere we had placed the 6th grade in that building, someone or some individuals would have had to move. There was no place on the 2nd floor for classrooms that they would have had no teachers moving, no programs moving. The footprint of the building can actually hold and is capable of holding the capacity that it's going to be at next year. It actually exceeds that. So for me, it's not about surplus space, because you're talking about place that was actually in use. If we talk about surplus space and you're asking, then technically we do have surplus space, because we were just spread out because there was like less population, so everyone was in different classrooms. Things were taking up a lot of different spaces. What we did now was an analysis of space and determine where's the best possible space to put individuals, and that's what we did.
Right. Thank you. Deb.
When you brought your memo forward in January, I had some questions, and I'd like to revisit them. They also have to do with the language around the law. And I have it here, or I had it here. It's Chapter 71, Section 16, and it's very short, so I'm just going to read it because my questions actually speak specifically to these. To rent or lease with the approval of the Commissioner of Education, surplus space in a school building of the district to house public or private profit-making businesses or non-profit organizations, provided, however, that if said school building is in actual use, such joint occupancy shall not interfere with educational programs being conducted therein, and provided further that if said school building is not in actual use, such lease must be approved by the city or town in which the said building is located. Such leases may be made for periods not exceeding 10 years. The monies received from such rental or lease shall be kept in a separate kept separate and apart from other funds in the district treasury by the district treasurer, and the principal and interest thereon may be expended without further appropriation by the regional school district committee for upkeep of the facility in which said surplus space is located, provided, however, that any balance remaining in such account at the close of a fiscal year shall be paid into the excess and deficiency fund, so-called, of the regional school district as unencumbered funds and expended as provided in sections, well. So my first question is, are we on that?
Yes.
Yes, we are. I'm getting nods, so that's great. Because obviously folding it into the operating is very different than what the law prescribes. I've struggled with what it means to have an impact, and I don't think it's well defined. If we can argue, if a lawyer can question what the word shall means, I don't really know where we're going to go with impact. So the areas that I'm concerned about or that draw my attention are the special education programs. So the specialized programs, I've asked before, and I'm sorry, but I will keep asking what the staffing ratios are. Do we need any waivers? I know that's a dynamic question, but how those programs for the existing students, who will be 7th and 8th graders next year, how their experiences will change. So that's number one. Number two, I'd really appreciate some insight into the conversations you're having with DESE, because they're the people who are going to have to sign this lease and make these determinations. And then the last one would be, I forgot, so that's it.
So in terms of your first one, I will definitely, I don't have that information, so I'll bring that information back and share it through the chair or with the broader committee around the SE and how the impact in terms of teaching ratios. That was your request. So I will get that to you, to the committee. The conversations with DESE started, and as I put that in the memo for this month. They started in September of 2024. They reached out, the regional representatives reached out because they had been working with previous administrations around this. This is something that I believe no other district in Massachusetts has done. From that time, we've had either monthly or bi-monthly check-in meetings to talk about the progress, to provide guidance. A lot of it has also helped where we've been shifted in terms of resources. So when we had the question around 900 versus 990 hours and what that was going to look like, they were able to direct us to another department in DESE that helped us to determine and get that feedback in writing around how things were going to work. They were very clear on like our budgetary like making sure that our budgets are clear and separate, and even what you read around the lease, where it goes in there, the process, and so each of our meetings kind of start in with a whether it's a check-in on where we are in the process, what are some things that we may need to take into consideration, some of the considerations that we have or questions that we have, asking for guidance or direction onto like, hey, who can we reach out to this? And then they provide us or create a link for us. Some of that was used when we had the question about, can we name it academy? Like there's been various aspects in this entire process. But the guidance has really been to keep us within on a path that would help us get this approved. Even to the fact like the letter that goes to the commissioner actually comes from myself as the regional superintendent, not specifically as the Amherst superintendent, right? So it comes, like I write it on behalf of the region. I have to describe our process and how we are making sure that there's no impact. So a lot of what we're asking this evening, it took the time for us to really go through these details and have these conversations because it's a part of what I have to present to DESE for it to be approved. So really, honestly and truly, you know, the number of classrooms, if there is an impact to educational program, all of those things. So really walking through the different things, the timelines, and even when we had that snafu last year that brought us into alignment with our regional agreement and assessments, they've really been, like, to me, a resource to this district. So we've just continued to work moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
William?
So, quickly, and you don't have to necessarily answer this part, but I know that in the lunchrooms during lunchtime for the 7th and 8th graders, we don't always have a lot of adults in the room. So I would just say, can we, in our current system, we have it set up, support a third lunch? And I would just think about staffing during those lunch times. Don't need to answer that now. I do have a question for I think it's the UFCW, which is that the facilities? So does that include the cafeteria workers?
Yes.
I think it's
Not
UFC.
facilities people, but the
Cafeteria
food service, the
workers, food service.
yeah.
No, cafeteria is not UFC. Jen?
UFCW is for cafeteria workers. It does not include facilities.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
UFCW, do we need to have any other negotiations or bargaining because they're adding a third lunch?
So I'm currently in JLMCs with them, and that topic has not come up. We've already discussed it as staffing across the 3 elementary schools and how that would impact the region as well. And so they've not brought that up as a topic of discussion or to bargain over the impact of a third lunch.
And then for the custodial staff too, do we have to have negotiations or bargaining, or the classrooms that the 6th graders will be using are already occupied rooms that we're using today, or are we adding workload to the custodial staff?
So they are classes that are occupied today, and I believe that through the lease, we're actually including janitorial services in the cost of the lease.
Okay, and then lastly, I would say, you don't have to answer this, just think about it. Would breakfast work, morning movement work, and then after school would be my bigger questions, but you don't have to answer them now.
Okay.
Or you can, whatever, I don't care.
So Marta is on Morning Movement is a regional program, and so there's no impact to my knowledge to morning movement. Marta?
Yes. So, no, there's no impact to that. And as a matter of fact, we're considering, because we're trying to get more funds, obviously, and we're trying really hard to see how we can incorporate grade 6 into morning movement. So that's in the works. We're really grateful to the town for approving the budget for our program. But one thing we're really excited about is adding the grade 6 to the VELA program, to the After School 21st Century Grant. And also Amherst Recreation trying to do some programming also for after school programming.
Thank you, and I think that is wonderful that morning movement can incorporate that because of siblings and stuff, so thank you, Marta.
Thank you.
And then you had 2 more. Breakfast?
Oh, you touched everything, you're good.
Okay, no problem, thank you.
Anna?
So I just wanted to double up on Deb's comment about special ed. And my experience and understanding of the special ed services that are currently being provided in the middle school is that all of the providers that are doing, SLP, OT, and even some of the pull-out classes, they are full up. And if we're sharing resources with the 6th graders, how are we going to accommodate those additional kids with those providers? And, I know that these kids are have been served in the elementary schools. If we have to share positions, have some of these employees moving across buildings, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that there's very thoughtful consideration and full coverage for all of the students, and that there is no reduction or increase in workload that goes beyond what is really manageable for these providers, because an overworked SLP, even when they're like 100% full load, it makes the scheduling really, really difficult, and finding times to pull these kids out of class. these kids are being pulled out of academic classes instead of specials because there's no other time to do it for that particular SLP or that particular specialist. And so thinking about how sharing these providers and would affect the workload and affect the pullout times for the 7th and 8th graders, I think is really important.
Thank you for that, Anna. We definitely will work on making sure we get that information and outline.
Sarah?
I didn't,
Not your hand. Okay. Well, I'll go with
I just scratched. It was me.
you also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, okay. So Bridget, and then I have a comment myself.
My question is well-timed, or I actually have two, but the first one really aligns with what Anna was saying. I think I would have to disagree to some point with what Sarah Marshall and Sarah Best Kenny were saying in a way, because we know that this is going to have some impact on the middle school staff and the middle school class sizes or the student-teacher ratios or that type of thing. Obviously, we didn't come to a 3.5 Amherst budget out of nowhere. There was a lot of consolidation and shared services between the teachers, like where we're paying part of the salary from Amherst for the 6th grade and then those teachers. So the idea is like the same teacher can't integrate one more grade without the educational impact or outcome, let's not say, being affected in some way, whether it's the number of students, the class size, et cetera. And so I guess my question is, what was the decision point for the positions that you felt like, okay, this is doable, versus the ones where you said, okay, no, that would be too much?
So I'm gonna ask the team to jump in and clarify for me, because I'm confused. So for example, you know, of the leadership in terms of the principal, we talked about that in terms of having one custodian, one leader of the building. We talked a little bit around looking at the dean and like in terms of supports. There's dedicated staff that's solely to Chestnut Street, the assistant principal, the guidance counselor, you know, the teachers. I believe that what you're talking about is not any content area teachers. There's also a dedicated clerical individual for that school. This person is going to monitor like their attendance and those types of things so that there's dedicated staff. I think you're talking about the world language teachers in terms of their load, and that's why it's on a rotation versus on a everyday like kind of thing. And so I'll let Tanya explain that some more to give myself a break, and Shannon, if you guys, or Rich and Wong, if you want to jump in.
Sure. And so the content teachers for 6th grade are only Amherst teachers. So the shared staffing around teaching loads would be the world language and the library and specialized programs. So Amherst elementary schools have their own SE teachers, so they have 3 SE teachers coming to Chestnut and so on. But with the world language, one, again, that's if their scheduling works out and aligns with where Chestnut Street can. It would be a quarterly rotation. They would have 2 cohorts at a time, 2 days a week, and they would teach those students, and then they'll switch 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. So the alignment of that is where we're working with the world language at the region, so we'll to see how we can make that work. And so they believe it is doable from their end, and because of the grading differences, of course, in high school versus regional or elementary schools, they believe that works for them. They were really excited. Actually, they were the ones that reminded me that this was something that the districts talked about, the Amherst district talked about back in 2021. But it's important to note, as we finalize budgets and the region finalize their schedule, the high school finalizes their schedule, if it does not work, we're not going to do it because it would have a negative impact on the high school or on the middle school. So what we're doing is finding alignment to have those shared pieces that does work for both schedules. So if there are points where it doesn't, it's important to know that that won't happen. So we are hopeful, the high school people are hopeful. And as we worked on looking at schedules, there's alignment right now. But if for whatever reason, let's say that as you look at staffing and a period changes or something, that it doesn't give the teacher time, then the Chestnut Street wouldn't have it because it would impact the regional schedule negatively. But right now, in all the things that we're looking at, that's why there are multiple versions of the schedule, there is not an impact. Where we thought there was going to be an impact where it couldn't happen, we then pivoted and took a look at, well, how can we look at chorus and drama? So there's a version of that schedule. So it is important to know that the Chestnut Street, and I keep making sure I say this everywhere, and I said it last night, the Chestnut Street schedule will not be the impact to the regional schedule. So that schedule is separate. Just like even with lunch, William mentioned lunch. We had to make sure we started early enough so that there's no impact to the regional schedule for lunch. Make sure it's early enough so there's no regional impact around recess. So right now, the world language teachers believe they can do it, and once schedules are finalized for the region, that's when we'll be able to take a look. And on our side, for budgets for Amherst, we'll be able to take a look and see, does it actually align? And if it doesn't, then we'll pivot and provide something else.
That's super. Thank you, Tanya. That was really helpful to,
No, thank you.
and a lot of moving parts. So I only have one last question, and maybe it's more for Shannon, but maybe Dr. Z knows. So GCPC allocated almost $500,000. I think it was $450,000 for the sixth grade move and the retrofitting. And can you give us specifics on how that has been sent so far and how you're using it in the lead up to the fall?
Is
Is that an Amherst question?
I don't
Amherst?
Because
think
that has no
it's a-
impact to the region.
Well, no, it's our building, so our building is being either improved or not, or what for, so we'd like the specifics, I think, at the region as well.
Okay, can you clarify for me, because I froze for a second. You're asking
The
You're asking on
450
behalf of Amherst or on the region?
Well, the region, no building will be impacted to some degree, right? As with whatever retrofitting or changing. So I'm just wondering how that's $450,000 is being spent. How's it been spent so far? And any improvements or what types of things and you know, what you're looking forward to this summer in terms of spending those funds for that? How much will be on our building? Some of it might be just on things sixth grade would take if we moved them back to Crocker Farm in a year or two. You would know that, and then you can tell us, oh, that wouldn't impact the region. But I'm looking for specifics.
So I don't know if I should go into specifically how Amherst is spending their funds, but what I will say is that we're not using it for a jacuzzi and sauna. That's not happening. That was a joke, by the way. I was trying to lighten the room. What we're ensuring happens is that anything that it would take for the sixth grade to integrate into the middle school, that funding is appropriated for, and it's not coming out of the regional budget. Specifically, one of the things, and I can't give specifics right now because I can go into, Shannon, are you there to give some examples of how we are ensuring that there is not a regional impact in terms of capital or funding that we are spending, but more so that Amherst is spending what it takes to bring their students in?
Yeah, so some of the funding is being used for like simple things like the repainting and making the middle school ready for the sixth grade. But we are also using, you know, we have some capital funds for internal improvements that will be for the entire middle school for the 7th and 8th grade, so that it's not just the 6th grade portion being fixed and nothing else. Some of those funds are being used for some walkie-talkies and some additional equipment that's needed, and there may be some potential classroom modifications that we need to make that Mike is exploring that will be used. We're also using some of the funds because we have to go through some of our storage spaces and using that for the shredding bins and getting rid of very old files that we no longer have to keep. Some of those funds are also being used to support the staff for additional working days related to packing, moving, setup. And there was an agreement between the union and the district for those additional days for those staff that will have to be moved. And there have been things that have come up along the way that wasn't at the foresight. Like one simple thing is the signage that's needed for Chestnut Street Academy within the middle school, outside the middle school, and then also like the play space for the sixth grade and some of their additional needs that they'll need. That will also come from there in terms of some equipment. So that's kind of a quick general overview.
Thank you, that's super.
Thank you. So I have Tim and then myself, and then I think there's one request for round 3. And then I think we should take a break.
Is kind of a follow-up to Bridget's question. Can I just?
You can go after Tim.
So I guess I thought I heard something about the town of Amherst, $450,000, which when that came up earlier tonight, I took note, and I may have misunderstood, but I took note that Dr. Z was not familiar about them being used to build solar tubes, or maybe she was not familiar about the $450,000. I'm not sure. Also, we don't have any documentation about this $450,000 that may or may not have been spent in 2019 or sometime since then. It's now. Anna's whispering in my ear that it's now, which doesn't mean anything to me. Now as in May 2026? Now as in school year 2026? Like what is the $450,000, and really, like, why does it matter?
So I can say a couple of things. The $450,000 is an expense or funding that was put forth by the town of Amherst to accommodate the sixth grade integration into ARMS. The $450,000 in terms of expense is what I was explaining earlier, and how it's expended should be expended to make sure that whatever needs to happen for the sixth grade to move in can happen. Why is it relevant to the regional impact? That was the question I asked Bridget, but she said it's the Regents building, and she wanted to know how that money was being spent for the Regents building. And so Shannon talked about some things where they would minimize or make sure that there's no impact to the region, which we've, through our whole conversation, have tried to make sure. And I think we've been very good at it, at separating expenses throughout this whole process, and making sure what needs to come from the Amherst line comes from the Amherst line, and what needs to go to region goes to region. Like, that's been very critical. We want to avoid any mishaps in that regard. I was not, Tim, when I came in, there was 500, then it was 450, then what was sent back. It was a whole thing. It's the only thing that I'm aware of that money was allocated for was for the sixth grade integration into the middle school. Tonight was my first time ever hearing about solar tubes. So that's the thing that I have not heard before. But in this entire process since I've been in here, every time I engage in a conversation with anyone, I learn something new about this process that's not documented in a place I can find it as easily. So I'll get it right there. I hope I provided some explanation around this.
Thank you. So I have myself and then Laura Jane, and then I think we should move on and take a break. Okay, so there was, so I have two comments. One, I agree that there would be impact regardless of where their sixth grade classrooms were placed. However, it's clear to me that what is being presented tonight is thoughtful placement. And it also sounds like as it is still in the process of being finalized. For example, we just talked about the ILC et al. Room moving to downstairs, which sounds like it works much better for the students, right? There would be impact regardless of what is happening, but that is part of like putting 200 more students in a building, or however many sixth grade Chestnut Street Academy humans there are. I also was there for that year that was really big. I was that ninth grade class, and it was fine. That building is plenty large enough to hold more students than we are putting in it. I think it's important to note that while I don't think it's fair to read into lack of public comment tonight one way or another. When this conversation first started in 2019, and then as it's continued through, when it first came up, there was hundreds of hours of public comment and pages that were sent in. So there already has been lots of public input put on this. And this meeting has been posted for almost a week. So 6 days of this public posting, plus we talked about it at our last meeting, saying that on April 28th, that we were going to, that while it was on that meeting, that we were going to then talk about it at this meeting. So there has been lots of notice that if people wanted to submit public comment regarding any topic we were discussing tonight, specifically this one, that it was out there that we were going to be having this discussion. So I think that's important to note. And I want to thank very much Dr. Z and Tanya and Assistant Principal Farrow and Principal Rodriguez. And I can't see if there's anybody else that was part of the district that came to have this conversation very late tonight.
Marta, Shannon, and Jen are on.
Yes, also Marta, Jen, and Shannon. Thank you all very much. This has been a lot of conversation that has been coming for a long time, and I'm glad we have been able to have it. And all that being said, it is 8:51. I am going to recommend we take a short recess until, I'm going to say 9 o'clock, which gives us 9 minutes. All right.
Wow. You did give me one question more.
Oh, I did. I'm so sorry. Yes. Go ahead. I apologize.
That's totally fine. I thought I heard Principal Rodriguez mention something about an outdoor play area or a space for recess or something like that. Is that coming from that $450,000? Is that something else? Like what is that going to look like? You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but is it like a play? Is it like, does it look like playground?
The middle school has a series of courtyards built in between. I don't know, when you walk through the middle school, there's actually a series of like little grassy areas in between parts of the building. So that's the areas that he was describing. Principal Rodriguez, if you're there, or Mr. Farrow, if you want to talk more about that.
Sure. So, so looking at a variety of spaces, we haven't made any final determinations. And so right now we're in the discussion phase of really evaluating what is available to us. And so looking at the courtyards, looking at the parking lot on the district office side of the building, and maybe reclaiming some of the parking lot space and using that into converting into a playable sort of blacktop space, similar to what we see when we go to Crocker Farm, where there's a blacktop that's kind of sectioned off where students can play. But that obviously requires some analysis in terms of the impact that would have on availability of parking spaces, access to that space for for picking up or dropping off students, because right now it's used by vans and smaller buses and things. So there's a lot that goes into it if we were to do something like that. In addition, looking at some of the green spaces that we have around the building that in the long term could be used or converted into some playable spaces. For example, one of our eighth grade civics classes is looking at the idea of donating a Gaga pit as a class gift. And so where would we safely place that so that it could be accessible to all the students? And so really looking at a variety of different options. So nothing is set in stone yet, just looking at different ideas and having those conversations at this time.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
You're welcome.
now we'll take our recess. Thank you all. Thank you all to everybody who stayed to have this conversation. What time are we?
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
9:05. Go quick. Makeshift gavel. All right, I will call, good job, everyone. I'm calling the regional committee back to order at 9:05. Thank you all.
Thank you for the break.
Okay. So, oh good, they're still the same. Okay, so next up is starting the regional agreement update conversation. There have been many murmurings. Several years ago, we asked administration to start doing some research into this. I don't know where that landed, given conversations our towns are having and things that have come up since then with DESI recommendations. It is time for us to start our regional update conversation. I don't really know how to go about doing that, but I wanted to put it on the agenda so we can start having the conversation here. My understanding is that it is ours to work with and update. However, all of our updates also need to be passed by all 4 of our towns. So we need their buy-in from the beginning. As Dr. Z mentioned in previous agenda items, she has been meeting with DESI for a long time. This was one of the, I have been in many of those meetings. This has been a question I have asked about how we go about doing that. How can we find out what we need to update the different parts and pieces along the lines. So this is my attempt to start this conversation. In the fall, when we started having the lease update conversation, there was some feedback from the town of Amherst around they are no longer a select board. They're a town council and a town manager. So at the very least, they would like that part updated. I do think as we talk about our regional agreement conversation, we probably should loop in our Union 26 members as part of working together. In so much as that our superintendent is hired by both Union 26 and the region. Just a small little asterisk as part of this conversation. So part of the feedback I have received, or at one point or early in Tim's career as a school committee member, I tapped him to help me look at the regional agreement. We've had a few conversations about it, not too many. There became other bigger fish we had to fry. But this is becoming a big fish that needs assessment. And I don't think this will be a fast process, nor do I think it should be a fast process. I would like us to be able to be thoughtful about this. So we are moving forward in a way that is sensitive to the needs of our member towns and in a way that has sustainability. Rather than having, for this year only, blah, 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 addendums. So some of the things that have come up are update for legal compliance, which Dr. Z has brought forward on a couple of different issues, specifically the lease language that 3 of our 4 towns, that section, paragraph G, section 6, regarding our lease language for legal compliance, and then pathways for changing it, and learning what compliance updates are needed, and then a few ideas that have been floated around our potential, regarding potential ideas for redesign or shifting to a PK to 12 region, which is probably a really, really big conversation, especially since 2 of our 4 member towns are in a different superintendency union for their elementary schools. combining of districts, and I think potential of joining other districts. So there are lots of ideas that are happening. Feels like a really, really big conversation and topic, hence the starting it now. I am open to feedback and ideas on how to move forward with this. Yeah, William.
I was just going to say on the Union 26 piece is that as we dive into things, Amherst, Pelham, and the region share district staff. And there's no clear indication how that district staff salaries get split. And so while it's Pelham and Amherst as Union 26, which is not part of the region, but yet staff is for all three, however we look at it. So that's why I think it would be an important process to include Union 26 in, because I think it's going to be Union 26 and the region, or Amherst and the region, or Pelham, Amherst and the region. Who knows where it all goes, but they all play together. And then would we want to either set up a subcommittee to start looking at ideas? Would we want each, like, we're both from Pelham, so should we have conversations with our towns to then figure out what they want? And then Shutesbury has conversations with their town, and Leverett, and then Amherst, and then we come back? Or do we just take a stab at it ourselves and then present it to the town? I don't know.
Thank you. Dr. Z, I see your hand, Sarah.
Good evening. As a person who's been promoting this process, first of all, I think that also checking in with our regional reps at DESE, they're the ones who brought forth that there are various areas that has to be brought into compliance with MGL. So there might be an additional legal review. William, just piggybacking on your conversation, I think the FSS model might work for something like this, a subcommittee, but there also is representatives from the towns there that they have appointed to kind of join into the conversation. That's a suggestion so that their voices are heard in the process.
Thank you. Tim, I saw your hand next.
All right, well, thank you for putting this on the agenda. Let's see, I'm not sure which order I want to go in here, little notes I took for myself. One thing is that it might help us to understand the history more. So I don't know for sure, but between 2008 and 2020, between the Great Recession and COVID, there were 3 different attempts, 2 or 3, I think 3, attempts to change the regional agreement or change our regionalization structure in terms of hiring third parties, having community meetings, going over reports, bickering, all that stuff. Three strikes, and then everyone was like, all right, time for a global pandemic.
Yeah, we need a break.
So and that documentation exists somewhere. Deb has it all in her briefcase that she carries around with like a turtle shell on her back. And so that's the history. And I know that, if we're talking about changing our regionalization, rather than just updating the agreement, right? There's updating the agreement where we can do things like change how we agree to assess operating costs and or capital costs and, and other things. But ultimately, who cares about all the other stuff? It's all about money. We could just do that, and that doesn't, we can do that. Relatively lower lift than doing something like changing which district current districts belong to, or changing which superintendency or which region. All of those regionalization changes, I believe, trigger the same state law, which requires that we create a regionalization committee that has certain requirements in terms of who is on it, right? So there's a statutory methodology baked into the law that protects us from doing stupid things. by creating some other committee that's going to be separate from us. It's not going to be something we oversee. It's going to be its own committee. So I think that ultimately we need to be talking about spending money on third parties to come in and facilitate this thing. There's, you know, one of the problems with any of the big decisions and arguments about how do we, you know, right size the spending of something like a school district is that it almost always starts out with decisions that are so enormous that you have to spend more money in the beginning to figure out how to do them right without, you know, creating total havoc. And I think that's what this is. We need to figure out, you know, maybe it starts out with a subcommittee to explore the idea and, you know, to figure out who are the key stakeholders in that early phase. But ultimately, we need to find someone who can really help us facilitate discussion between the four towns. It should not be on us as committee members. The superintendent is going to be a key leader in this, but it should not be on her as the facilitator or the architect of the process because she's got a school district to run. So we can't have her spending all of her time, and it will be all of her time, architecting some new future vision when we need her operating the current vision. And, you know, or we could just say, like, charge Leverett less. And I'll just put that, like, in a sentence in the regional agreement. Leverett gets a 50% discount on operating and capital costs going forward. Call it a day. And then, you know, done.
Thank you. I have Sarah, then Deb, then Anna.
Yeah. I agree with part of what I heard Tim to say, which is we really have two tracks to pursue, and I think they need to be separate. I think we need to update the regional agreement to reflect our current our current region, and you know, bring it into compliance with the laws that have changed in the city structures and, you know, this and that, so that it's correct for what we're doing now. And compared to the second track, the exploring, again, potentials for regionalizing maybe Amherst and Pelham Elementary. That was the most recent effort, I think, and that failed. Or, all, you know, whatever. There are many possibilities. It seems to me that that's going to be the far more time-consuming and fraught. So I don't think we should wait to try to arrive at one global new agreement. I think we should just get on with updating the one we have to reflect the region that we have.
Great, thank you. Deb?
I strongly support that. I think updating the regional agreement to be in compliance with law is going to be very difficult. And I think we are required to do it, or at least DESE is telling us to do it, and our towns are telling us to do it, and I think that's plenty. So I would like to say that. I would like to say that, for the record, everybody who has spoken about this I've looked into this point of view, the rural school people in particular, say regionalization does not save money. It enhances educational opportunities unless you close the school. So say that over and over again, because nobody wants to close their elementary school, and it doesn't save money. What it does do is allows you to have smaller schools to have access to services and programs that they would not be able to afford separately. So that's number two. I was trying to look it up, and I will follow through on this, but DESE the last time we did the Amherst Pelham regionalization study, we did have somebody facilitate it. DESE at the time provided funding for these things. And last time Shannon mentioned that she was going to contact DESE to see if they would again. MASC did an advocacy day where right before the Day on the Hill, one of the things they were supporting is a DESE program that I'm not 100% clear on, if it's in the making or they're discussing it or people are advocating for it, where instead of regionalization, districts share resources. And that is, and then William has been getting at this sort of organically, and that creates a little bit less of a contentious issue regarding autonomy and things like that. So, and then the last, I guess that was all I got, except, yes, please do not make a complicated situation super, super complicated, because we will never get to the end of it. And it's been done, yeah, I think I have 4, maybe 2 are folded in, but there's lots of unsuccessful attempts to find common ground for this. And then the last big thing for regionalization is, if you do it, the state pays 80 to 90% of transportation reimbursed, and just general transportation, not special ed. So that's the one carrot in the whole thing, and that's all I got.
Thank you. Anna?
So I agree that the first step is probably just updating the regional agreement to be in compliance. But I think we can start that process. I think there's a few spots within the regional agreement that are a little bit debatable about how to update them and whether to update them, and so that would be something that might take a little bit longer. I think in this process, having representatives go back to their towns and get some feedback from them to get a feel for which of these topics are even on the table before we start engaging in a third party to help us negotiate these options and concepts. I think we're going to get a hard pass on some of these ideas. And it's not worth engaging a third party to try to negotiate these ideas if there is no interest in talking about these ideas. And so to get a little bit of a sense, is there any interest in regionalizing pre-K to 12? I think the answer is probably no. I think pulling out of a union, whether it's out of Union 26 or out of Union 28, is really complicated, and it causes all kinds of additional issues. And so I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's a lot of work, and that is an additional hurdle to trying to regionalize pre-K to 12. And so that would definitely be on the longer range conversation about how to get that done. I think there's certain things that if you go back to your town, you can say what things do you want to update in the regional agreement, and they might have a bunch of things that they think are not quite right and they want to have changed. But I think that if you go back to the town and say, what topics in the regional agreement do you not want to touch, that would provide a lot of insight about what we can really put on the table, and where towns are like, we worked really hard to get this agreed on, and I do not want to bring that, I don't want to put this back on the table because it will just open up a can of worms that we don't want to talk about. And I can tell you right now, allocation method is one of them. There's going to be almost zero interest from at least some towns to change the allocation method because it was a giant pain to get to the agreement where it is currently today. And the idea of opening up that discussion again is going to be really, really untenable for some town people. I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm just saying that's going to be a hard one. So I think that, if we go back to the towns and say, what do you want to update? What do you not want to touch? That is going to provide us a really good base to start with. And then we can see where we are at and just get a better sense of what the future might look like.
Okay, William.
So I was going to say, were there any grants? I know that in some states, like in Vermont, they were incentivizing regionalization. So I don't know if there's any incentives besides what Deb said.
There's some Massachusetts state money in the budget for regionalization something.
Right, so I would say, is that something we need to look at? Is that something Shannon could look at? I'm not sure. And then I think maybe if we could plan to have like a workshop to educate us what our regionalization agreement is, and then what we need to do to bring it into compliance. And if we could even have that education session, maybe like a 4 towns meeting, so then it would be us plus individuals from the towns that want to come, so we could all be on the same kind of level of understanding what the regional agreement is and maybe where we need to go. Because I don't have a clear understanding of where we are today. And so if I don't understand it, I would imagine there's other of us here tonight that don't understand it, much less. I mean, maybe the towns get it more than we do, so I don't know, but that's all.
I'm gonna let Bridget go because she hasn't had a chance to comment on this yet.
I just wanted to say one small thing, which is being on the FSS, I've noticed that there's a lot of enthusiasm for this idea, but I think that there's a misunderstanding to some extent of how much control we have actually over changing the allocation method. Like, so much of it is determined at the state level, and there's there's also this idea that there's a lot of cost savings available to towns, but then, and that comes from Amherst too, we hear that, like, why are we paying 83% or this type of thing? And I think that actually the reality of it is that we're just gonna end up in some sort of ugly struggle over very small fractions, because most of what each district has to pay is already predetermined, and for anyone who was there at that long presentation, Deb and I did it, the thing in that formula already. So I don't know why we would argue over that small margin.
Tim?
Yes, there's a couple drivers of this, and one of them is what people in the towns want, particularly the caregivers of students, and particularly the staff at the schools, but everyone in each town is a stakeholder. So there's that, but there's also the raw crunching sound of our budgets, that some of us grow by a modest amount each year. Some of us grow by a gargantuan amount each year. Something's out of balance, I think, in the budgets, and I don't think it's going to get better. I think that, the combination of macroeconomic factors in Massachusetts alone, but combined with the graceful flaming out of the baby boomer generation, and a total moron in the White House who has decided to completely destroy the global economy, de-dollarization, all of these things are making it so that, we have 3 suburbs clinging to a 4th suburb. And these 4 towns of houses that have deftly resisted any commercial or industrial development over the last 50 years, we're running out of runway. And by 2030, the baby boomers will be done selling off their businesses to foreign asset holders, and then we won't have anything left to pay for our schooling. So
So depressing.
Right now in May 2026, this is as good as it gets. Think about the budget year we just had, and then think about how much worse it's going to be for the rest of our lives, because people who are alive today will spend the rest of their lives in the United States cleaning up after the excesses of the last 70 years. And what that looks like where we live is that we're not going to have any money to pay for our little schools anymore. And we have to give up our cars and move into warehouses and, on cots and things like that, because we're running out of wealth. So that's a major factor. Like, the budget is going to determine a great deal more of this than, like, neat conversations over tea with townsfolk. But I would also say that it is, I think, extremely important that we not be the ones to go back to our towns and say, what do you think? I want to change the agreement. This is why we need to pay someone, a neutral person, to facilitate those conversations and find out, all of you people living in a complex set of towns, let's come together and figure out, what does everyone want? Where are our shared, where do we have common ground? Where do we have disagreement? What do the different towns want? What do different factions within each town want? And then figure that out from that point of view. But we can't do that. There's no way that we can do justice to what people actually want by just like going back and asking around. Like that, I mean, at the very minimum, we're talking about event management. Like, we might use the gymnasium at our schools and bring some cookies, but like, I don't have time to organize an event of the magnitude that we need to figure out what people actually want to do here. So that's, before anything else, and William, I like your suggestion about a workshop for us. Let's start by educating us and not assume that we know what we're talking about, because we clearly don't. Like, we demonstrate that twice a month on public TV.
Boy, you're really
just out there today.
I have a little hidden earbud, and there's someone who I pay a comedian out of Holyoke.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So I have Deb Largine and Sarah Marshall. What I am hearing so far is that while these are all lots of ideas that have been passed to me at some point about different regional options, it sounds like we need to focus on updating our regional agreement into compliance, and we need some basic framework on what our existing regional agreement means and how it operates, like with some like real meat to it, and what we need to do to update it and where those legal compliance issues are. Okay.
May I? Could we have a say as a committee as to who we select to help us with that work?
Yep, I wasn't making any suggestions. That is just what I have heard so far.
Just
making sure.
having seen some third parties come through these meetings, I have some opinions about,
Okay.
That's all.
I'm gonna let Laura Jane go first because she hasn't had comment in this agenda item yet.
Is everyone shocked by that at this moment?
I am.
Tim.
All right.
Just wait till executive session.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, so I actually really like the idea of a third party. So I was wondering, I had sort of a question about that. Like, is that something that we make a motion about and then vote? I don't know if that's a motion or if that's a subcommittee.
I don't think we're there just yet.
Okay, I'm just curious about that. I didn't know if that was like down the road, like something that would.
Maybe our future selves, but that is not a. Okay. I don't think we're there today.
Okay, so who could do would it be Mask that could train us about regional agreements? Like, who could?
Desi, I think, said,
Desi.
someone said Desi.
Desi could.
Sorry.
My
Can we pay them in
inclination-
crypto? Because I think that's all we've got left, based on what Tim said.
Yes. So I am thinking we need a couple of things before we can even really have a next conversation, right? Like, we need to, I don't know who would be an expert on our own personal regional agreement besides us doing our own in-depth research. Oh, Dr. Z, do you have help?
Yes. When I came in one of my conversations, one of the earlier ones that came up when we talked about with DESI, the regional agreement and it being out of compliance, between Christine Lynch, Michelle Griffin, and Jay Sullivan, their team, Michelle is actually the regional rep at DESI, like a person at DESI who deals with regional districts. Their team would actually be able to guide us onto the areas of our regional agreement that are out of compliance with the law, and probably provide us with guidance around who can provide some trainings or things to the school committee. So I would say start with the regional reps as an option. And then also possibly looking at some of the other regional districts to see what work they've done.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Z. Was that the end of your, okay. Deb.
For the 12 people currently watching this meeting in the public and the 12 others who will be watching it some other time, I would like to state that what we know and haven't said and bears saying is that when there is a regional agreement, the region itself is a municipality. It owns its own property, so all the property in the region belongs to the region, and it is its own governance structure. That's all I got. And there's a lot that comes packed into that little kind of tiny caveat to the regionalization.
Yes. Sarah?
I just wonder whether DESI has a model regional agreement, you know,
I don't
like
believe
here's the,
so.
well, then we should look for the most recent one to be updated or finalized.
William?
I was just gonna say, maybe we could write a book on how to do it, and then we could raise money by doing that.
How not to.
Okay. All right. So what I'm hearing is we are going to focus on updating the existing regional agreement into compliance. We would like to look for expert on regional agreements and our own regional agreement.
I think maybe contact DESI to see if they can provide support for that, either the selection of or the presentation.
What about our attorney?
RJ?
I heard more like a skilled facilitator / mediator rather than someone who's an expert on regional agreements.
So I think there's two pieces.
Okay.
One is first, we need to be educated, and then a facilitator, mediator to have the conversations about what updating needs to happen outside of the make it be legal. Is that
with crypto? If necessary.
Bridget?
I just want to say that Tim was incredibly pessimistic about the state of the world, and yet somehow incredibly optimistic about the possibility of us doing this. And the thing that occurs to me is that one group of people who might be useful to share some information with us are the groups of people who've done this before and had it stall out. What were the key issues that they spent 3 years of their lives at evening meetings to get nowhere about? And how do we avoid that? Because I'm not, when I saw this on the agenda, I said, hell no. And I'm an optimist, Tim. I would not agree with that picture of the world you painted.
Okay. So
Worth saying.
start with DESI is what I'm hearing. Okay, I will reach out to DESI. Okay, thank you. I know that is a giant topic. It will come up again. It will take lots of work and consideration. And I appreciate you all being super excited to have this conversation. Okay, next up, school committee goals and objectives for SY26. So Sarah, there were a couple things that I have as part of the conversation that have already been brought forward. We talked at a previous meeting about the role of the fiscal sustainability, working with the four towns rep. Budget and audit has come up before with ideas about capital plan and free cash opportunities and a calendar development for planning. I took the annual agenda. So attached here are the budget and audit subcommittee charge and the annual agenda as I have, that is its current iteration that has incorporated several, can you put the annual agenda up, please? No, that one, yep. It is multicolored now. And they are highlighted by, can you scroll so we can see all of it? Okay.
I can try to zoom. Hang on, I can zoom.
Perfect. So yellow is budget and audit subcommittee with its timeline that as this year has progressed, it is folded in. Policy readings and votes is down here on the bottom because they have been folded into joint meetings for their timeline. The superintendent you can't see it nearly as well on here as you could when I was doing it. Those colors are too close. I apologize. And the school equity advisory has an annual report that is due in June. So these are the things that have been already existed folding into the calendar. I wanted to be able to start having this conversation in the same vein as having the superintendent's goals conversation in the spring, so we are prepared and ready to hit the ground running in the fall. So that's where we are with this. Tim.
Yeah, thank you for organizing this. I might just be overlooking it. I don't see anything about the audit on the calendar, so that seems like a budget and audit subcommittee item to put somewhere around now, since. And while I'm mentioning it, like there, we could maybe introduce like a little more structure to the audit, because I'm not clear on how we addressed it. I mean, we learned about it at our we're in May. April comes before May. In our April meeting, we learned about the results of the audit. I don't know when the audit process began or what that looked like, so.
Sarah?
Yeah, a few things. We're going to have, the Budget and Audit Subcommittee is meeting on Friday, and we're going to have a fuller discussion of the audit then. We only had like 2 minutes with 3 minutes of highlights. What I believe what is in yellow is budget-related work that comes to the full committee. It's not, we're not scheduling every subcommittee meeting in this way. We're going to have our own, we're going to meet as needed to prepare for or respond to the meetings of the budget-related matters that come to the full committee. Last year, the subcommittee discussed the audit with Shannon and Dr. Z. And then I think we just made a very brief report to the full committee and said, if anybody wants more information, let us know. We didn't, we heard it, we were satisfied, it's attached to the agenda, and we didn't have a full discussion. I mean, there was opportunity, but I don't recall that there was any big presentation to the full committee. We just dealt with it in subcommittee. So again, because subcommittee meetings are not in this annual agenda, you don't see the audit highlighted anywhere.
Do you have a follow-up?
I think the audit should be on the calendar. And I think that if the full committee is able to look at the annual calendar and be like, oh, okay, so the audit we can expect in April or May, and there's something that happens to set that process in motion in January or February, then the committee will then be more well-informed and might have more to say about the audit.
Okay.
I did have a question, also? About the superintendent evaluation. Should the mid-year evaluation be on this?
It's in January.
It is. Where's January?
It's just not
That's the
highlighted.
tool.
Oh, it's just not
It's not,
highlighted.
I see, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I saw the tool, yeah.
All right. Deb.
One of the things that I think is worthwhile creating its own separate calendar for is all the pieces that we remember annually, like when are each of the town meetings?
It's on there.
When do the RIF notices go out? When do the, Amherst hearings take place? I think there's a real structural issue with, this is what we do, but is it workable? Is there a structure that would work? If you're talking about not starting a real budget conversation with numbers until March-ish, having gotten the health insurance information January-ish and gotten the guidance from Amherst, there's just pieces of it that I don't really know how they fit together in a way that is workable. And I think it's worthwhile putting that all together and seeing if there's something that can be, it's like Tracy said at the retreat, you kind of back things up and count backwards and see where you really need to start things.
So, you're talking,
I'm talking about creating a separate budget calendar that doesn't necessarily have things that get brought to the committee,
okay.
but that are relevant to our work and when we take up things. Was that just too rambling?
Nope, separate
Okay.
budget calendar.
Got it.
Yes, the annual agenda that is on here is more about when things are all coming to the full committee rather than, right, like the superintendent evaluation subcommittee is not gonna meet the one time in January and have a tool ready to go that afternoon, right? So I think each of the subcommittees could work to create their own calendar, so then it's the larger annual agenda can work, they can all work together. William, I see your hand, Sarah.
So I was gonna, this may be on here. I apologize if it is.
No, go ahead.
School councils, they should come to us once a year, I believe, and give us improvement plans or talk to us about the budget stuff, so that should come before budget, because the improvement plans from the school councils should affect how we budget. So that was one of them. There's supposed to be a,
I'm sorry, you said school councils for the improvement plans, and then what was the second
the
thing?
improvement plans should come to us, and we could have a conversation about how that affects our budget. So that should happen prior to us starting budget conversations.
Okay,
So a presentation of school improvement plans from the school councils, I think. There's also supposed to be, we're supposed to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion team or officer, and they're supposed to advise us as a school committee, according to Chapter 71, Section 101. I've never seen that, so that should probably be on the calendar at some point in time.
what was that?
It says, public school districts and charter schools shall establish a process for advising the school committee or board of trustees on matter of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the school district or charter school, which may include establishing an educator diversity council. Anyway, it goes on and on and on, but,
DEI, blah, 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 presentation.
right, on the yearly calendar. Oh, that's nothing, sorry. And then, the other thing is that we're supposed to have the student council. So town regional school districts shall meet once every other month. During the month schools in session, a student advisory committee is supposed to consist of 5 members. I know last year we had 2 students that came. We've never had anyone come this year.
They came once.
Members of the student advisory committee shall, I think they're supposed to be meeting with us regularly. So I would add that to the calendar. And that's all I have. Sorry.
Okay, so there, you said DEI presentation, we do have an annual HR report that happens in December, which in my recollection.
Maybe it touches on that. Okay, it
Folds that
could.
information in. All right, and then a student advisory is like, what do you say?
Well, we're supposed to meet with them. Let me see what's the occurrence supposed to be.
Is it a,
They're supposed to, by majority of vote, the first day of June in each year, elect from their member chairperson who will serve on a team, serve here for 1 year.
A student?
Uh-huh. Said chairperson shall be
Like a
an
third grader?
I think it's
No,
high
no,
school.
no, high school.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah.
This is the region.
Oh, right.
Okay.
It says the school committee may designate a student outreach coordinator for the purpose of ensuring the establishment of a student advisory committee. So we haven't set up a
Okay.
school committee. We haven't set up a student outreach coordinator. So maybe that needs to be on our agenda.
Can I ask, is this from policy or from?
It's from chapter 71,
From the
section
law.
38. It's all MGL laws of things we don't do.
Okay.
That could be on the yearly calendar, that's all.
Okay. So annual town meetings are on there. They do switch a little bit, but they are on there in that bottom thing to the best of my ability. And the other information that happens, right? So like our regional budget has to be voted prior to March 31st, and the annual warrants have to be delivered 45 days prior to the annual town meetings, and those days shift, right? So like there are some moving targets that we don't have any control over, but to the best of my ability, it is folded into that. But I do hear you about having a separate budget calendar because that might help with the free cash requests that can come in to towns, and working with the JCPC does have isn't that no, BCG
Yeah.
has a regional representative on it, so maybe coordinating that into a budget calendar timeline. I know we don't have control over when those meetings are, but okay.
Or maybe at Amherst.
Oh, my computer says no, thank you. Okay. And Deb had shared with me previously a lovely draft for subcommittee charges that I forgot to attach today, but I will share it for the next time we have this conversation. And so thank you to the town of Amherst for giving us the skeleton to hijack their draft subcommittee charge. So I will share that next time. I apologize for not attaching it tonight. Deb.
So one of the things that we should figure out and read into the record is what the last town meeting means, because that's when we're supposed to reorganize. And I think every year we have a discussion about what does it last? Does it mean most recent, or does it mean the latest in the year?
So,
and now that Amherst is on this weird cycle, we never know if it's January, if it's June. Do we do it in January and June? That doesn't make sense.
Policy looked into that.
Oh, okay.
And because Amherst has their elections in November, but they take effect in January, that would be the first one for the year. And then Shutesbury and Leverett and Pelham have them for the last one of the year. So we just had our last election tonight, they closed. I believe that Leverett has already had their elections, and so has Shutesbury. So,
I've not been sworn in yet, though.
Did you win?
Yes.
so Pelham is the last town this year to have their election, and it was today, so it closed tonight while we're sitting here. So then we have to reorganize, I think, after that.
Quick point of clarification, so the year is the calendar year in this case, when we do everything else by fiscal and school year? Because, I mean, if it were fiscal year, this would be very easy. It would just be the same thing that you just described without needing to say it's January, not November. Like, why would it be the calendar year?
It's the same.
But it would be the same either way.
Even if it's academic year, they're just January to.
Well, I think we should know which one it is.
I think it's after the last small town. Go ahead.
My suggestion would be for policy for the region, if policy can look at it, and then have that be like a date. Like, at the last meeting in June for the regional school committee, the individual towns, I feel like, can coordinate. They have their own schedule for their elections that they have their bylaws for, but at the region, I think we probably could have just the date, the last meeting in June or whatever.
Do we reorganize every year?
Yes.
Okay.
It is currently, hold on. You don't mind pausing for 1 second, I can tell you when I. Requested agenda items.
Somewhere.
We also can't reorganize until the towns reorganize. So I don't know if Leverett has reorganized theirs yet, or Pelham has not reorganized theirs yet. So we can't reorganize until the last town, after their votes, their school committee reorganizes, because Pelham only sends 2, Shutesbury and Leverett only send 1. We're not like Amherst that everyone gets to come.
So
Gets is a strong word.
Amherst is a strong town.
we can, so I currently have for the future agenda list for the region to reorganize on June 9th.
Cool.
Which was my best attempt to incorporate all of those different pieces.
Right, because Pelham is reorganizing June 2nd, I think, so.
I think, yes.
Oh, that works.
Okay, so, I think, like our previous item, I will share out the draft form for school committee, the subcommittee charges. And then I think this is also another conversation we should bring back. Deb, did I get everybody?
I didn't read it, I'm sorry. It was a crazy day. Do we have the self-evaluations on there?
The
What committee?
Committee self-evaluation?
On the schedule.
on the
Yes.
agenda?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, I saw it.
It was in
Yeah, I think
April.
so.
April?
School, June.
And somewhere we're supposed to, there's a policy I can't find that says how we're supposed to, I think there's new school committee members are supposed to meet with the superintendent, but there's also a part where they're supposed to be given a policy manual. And we don't have a policy manual, we have board docs, but we could do the electronic equivalent of sitting down with somebody and showing them where it is and how to navigate the library.
I did that.
You did that,
I think that's what I was
yay,
saying, Pelham chair did that for me.
Are
yay.
you suggesting?
I
this
did
be
not, I'm
in the-
sorry.
No, Sarah Best did it.
Sarah Best did it for Andrew and I.
And for me.
But are you suggesting that it needs to be in this calendar? I don't know what.
I thought that would be good
Okay.
to have as part of the calendar.
So, but we don't always have new school committee members
Right, so,
as
but
part
there's,
of the agenda. I mean, as part of
Every year.
every year, right?
it
So
could be parenthetical.
there is, right, but you want to do that for a new school committee member whenever they join. If they're appointed in the middle of February, you just want that to be able to happen for them. So I think at one of the subcommittee presentations, I have taken we have a policy that it says all of the things you need to do, and I operationalized it, and I made a bunch of links to a bunch of different places that takes all of those items, and I have sat down with new school committee members and had those conversations. Tim?
I recall also that you have like a book of how to be a chair, something like that, right? That that's what you told me last fall,
thought
is
I
that
see-
you are putting together like a book of procedures for the chair, and that seems like that's where that would belong. It's such a good idea that you had, Sarah Beth.
So also, as part of this conversation, I think you should all have access to it now. There is a regional school committee shared drive that has all of these things in it. Hold on. Let me get to the, I feel like we are sliding slightly off topic, but I'm pretty excited about this, so.
Regional School Committee.
Yeah. Can I have the? No, I want the plug.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was pointing and not using words.
You're in the drive.
So Mask has a whole section on publications, a handbook for school committee members, all these things.
So here is our,
Go to shared drive?
it is a shared drive. Oh.
Shared with me.
So will be a folder where we can hold subcommittee charges, because you can also link, there's that big spreadsheet that has all of the policy, and in the policy manual it has the big spreadsheet that has all of the subcommittees, and it's a teeny tiny little square for a blurb. However, we can link into here, which will hold all of it. See, here's like the annual agenda that we were just talking about.
I have to find this.
So here's a new member orientation document with all of the links that it links to. So there we go.
Nice work.
Thank you.
It was very
Look
helpful.
at that.
I did not, I was trying, but I haven't.
I'll
If you
take
go
it
to the
to-
drive and
can
then you go to shared
Can you
drives.
do tutoring?
Yes,
after?
absolutely.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna shut up.
Okay. Okay, so do we feel satisfied with this conversation to the best of our ability? Okay.
Thank you for all the
Please
work
work
you've
tonight.
done on this.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so we have a consent agenda, but since our only item in there is the gifts, I would like to pull it out so we can read it individually and say thank you to our very generous donors. So I would like to make the motion to accept the following gifts from anonymous donor 178 to support middle school track program, extra buses or general use in the amount of $1,330. From Kathy and Bob Lowry, number 6775 to support the middle school track program, $1,300. And from Bank ESB, number 26849, account for a cause program to the high school at principal's discretion for $1,150 for a cash total of $3,780. And from the Amherst Education Foundation to the Bell to Bell solution at Summit Academy for $4,094 to be awarded by September 1st, 2026.
Second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you so much to our very, very generous donators. Donors, there we go. Okay, so future agenda planning, we have talked about several things. Our next meeting will be on May 20th, which will be a joint meeting.
What are the joint topics?
I'm
Lots of
getting
policy.
there.
Is it also the superintendent's artifacts? Is that going to be
Not
presented?
the artifacts. We will be having the superintendent 26-27 goals conversation. We will have a strategic plan conversation, district student bill of rights. We will have conversation around district start times.
Dang.
It'll be short.
And I think we have like
And-
14 policies plus JKAA.
Yep, policies for
What?
second read and potential vote, and policies for first read, which include several more G policies, 2 A policies, and JKAA. The next, and then our next regional school committee meeting is May 26th. Okay, I did see a couple of hands that went up. Hold on, let me get to a place where I can write these things down.
May 26th and June 9th? I guess that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, Tim, I feel like I saw your hand go up first.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about the Mass DEP Water Smart Lead testing program. And an article in the Graphic about, I would just like to learn more about the voluntary lead testing results for the high school, the middle school. Pelham Elementary and Crocker Farm are also listed, but they're none of my business. But of course, I am a human, and so I'm interested in hearing how it went for them. Yeah, I would like to learn more about that testing and learn more about the mandatory statewide regulations due to take effect in a year and a half, November 2027. And anything else that our district is thinking about doing, planning in relation to all of that.
William?
I was going to say the BPIP, when they're done editing it, and then also how the district has implemented a proceduralized JICFC, which is the harassment of students.
Preventing.
How they proceduralized that policy and implemented the policy. JICFC.
Yes, the prevention.
Proceduralized and implemented. Okay.
CFC.
Laura Jane?
It's my understanding that the school committee has the responsibility to approve curriculum. And there has been a big scandal with iReady and data breaching. And also, it's also my understanding that the iReady curriculum that was implemented into the middle school, I know the elementary school is separate, right? But the middle school was a pilot program. I would like to have a discussion about the role of canned curriculum in general in our district, and specifically about how much it's costing us and getting iReady out of our district.
Sorry, my scrunchy face was not about what you were saying. It was about my links aren't working. It's making me feel sad. Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I'd like to make a motion right now to get rid of iReady.
We do not have iReady on the agenda. We cannot make motions about it. I'm sorry, can you repeat it was...
Concerns, so my understanding was that the middle school was in a pilot stage with iReady. iReady has had a huge data breach. I think we should get rid of it. And I think we should have a much broader conversation about the role of canned curriculum in our district as a whole, because I know that there's been a lot of research recently about technology and canned curriculum as being crushing the spirits of students.
Okay, well, we can't have opinions while we're having agenda planning, but they are both on there.
I always have opinions.
I know. Was there anything else? Mind you, we are running out of days. Okay. Thank you. I will now move that the Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee now consider entering executive session pursuant to MGLC 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2 and 3 to discuss strategy and conduct sections with respect to collective bargaining, stipends, and litigation, APA regarding ACAA, and no contact directives if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and I do declare, and approve minutes in accordance with OML, Open Meeting Law, MGLC 30A, Section 22, with no intent to return to open session.
Second.
Any further discussion? William, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Laura Jane?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Andrew?
You know it.
And Sarah Beth? All right. Thank you all. We will